Sorry? It'll stop. Ah, so it's listening. Okay. Okay. So if I'm thinking, all right, good. Okay. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So we've discussed sources. The last three I'd like us to look at: maslaha, saddu zariya, and istihsan. I'd like to say something about these three. You remember in Qiyas, we spoke about illa. Illa as being what is clearly in the law and is usually quite specific. When somebody asks, and you remember the metaphor with the traffic lights. So you could go from, why should we stop at the red light? Because there's a law. Why do we follow that law? Because there's a benefit. You don't hurt anybody, nobody gets killed. Why do we care about that? Because down below, we believe in the dignity of everybody and freedom and equal access to roads and people's rights and consideration and those maqasid, the need to preserve life. So each one of these, each level is supported by text. Each of these levels is supported independently by numerous hadith and numerous verses of the Quran. How are we sure that Islam is interested in protecting life? Okay, is there a doubt that killing an innocent person is wrong? No. There's even a punishment for doing that. So there's no doubt about it, that life should be preserved, it should be protected, that you can't do injustice, not to a child, not to an adult, free person, slave. You can't just kill any innocent person without dire consequences. The fact that we have been told for every illness that Allah has destined will exist, He has also created a cure. Why are we being told that? Because Sharia is interested in cures. And there's a whole field of what is called prophetic medicine. Why are we interested in medicine and medication? It's all because of the protection, preservation, and promotion of life. And because there's so much evidence that life of people should be protected, should be preserved, should be enhanced, that is called a maqasid of Sharia. Basically what you're looking at is, if you look at all the injunctions, all the things that are fard, you must do, all the wajib, all the haram, what are they all trying to accomplish? That's the big question. What are they trying to realize? Not just on the law level. All these laws about don't drink alcohol, don't sit at a table where it's being served, don't carry it. What's it all about? It's all related to don't get intoxicated. What's the problem with getting intoxicated? Then your mind doesn't work. And if your mind doesn't work, you behave irresponsibly. You say things that you will regret and that hurt others. You do things. I mean, in some countries, up to 80% of fatal car accidents are related to drunken driving. Over 80% of cases of domestic violence are tied to alcohol. The rates of abortion in Russia, I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't sitting with an expert who had studied that and I had tried to confirm, did I hear you right? That on the average, and I'm not saying there are no countries that are worse than Russia in this, but what shocked me was when he said, on the average, a woman in Russia has 9 abortions in her life. Average 9. I said, average? Average means plus bigger numbers, average. And after the conference, I went to meet this gentleman. Like, did I hear you wrongly? Because I was taking notes down. He said, no, 9. I said, you mean 10 minus 1? He said, yes, 10 minus 1. I said, how? He said, alcohol. Alcohol. Yeah. That when you're drunk, you go and do stupid things, you become pregnant, and because abortion is so easy, it's free, it's not a problem. The problems of alcohol, actually, just do a Google search, harm of alcohol compared to, write anything, cocaine, heroin. All the studies on alcohol say the negative impact of alcohol, not just on health, no, on social life, financial, total impact assessment, they call it, of alcohol. Alcohol is #1 most dangerous substance moving in circulation. On a score of around 100, and following a criteria of about over 7 criteria, from addiction to health to violence to other related issues, alcohol is around, I think, 73 points. Heroin is around 64. Crack cocaine comes around 62. That when you say a drug is dangerous, and you had people, we're going off track here. Basically, if you have reasons to ban cocaine and heroin, you have bigger evidence to ban alcohol. Yeah, that's the simple conclusion. So it is very harmful, but many scholars would say the laws prohibiting alcohol are there to protect the mind from misjudgment, which leads to so many things. So many people die and get pregnant because they just can't think straight. So many people commit crimes, say things they don't, in their normal heads, they wouldn't say. But when they're drunk, they know they can say it and still be excused for being drunk. So they will take the opportunity of being drunk to say things they would normally not say. And the other person has no problem saying yes, because they can also go with the excuse that they are drunk. And after these people have done so many stupid things because they are drunk, other people can excuse them. Why? Because we know what it is to be drunk. So if others can excuse us, we can excuse you. It becomes a vicious cycle. It's difficult to solve the problem. When you look at the search for knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. Why? What's all this about knowledge? And they say it's about promoting and enhancing aql, the mental faculties. So what scholars find is, when you look at all the major things that are considered fard, you must do, all those things that are considered haram, major sins in particular, scholars realize that these things are called sins. They are laws that say this is right or this is wrong because there's some underlying major purpose that Sharia is trying to protect, that this thing is going against. So preservation of life is a maqasid. That's an objective of Sharia. Like at the bottom of why, you will come to a maqasid. Why is this law there? Because this benefit. Why? You get to a maqasid. Why can't you do zina? Because it's haram and there's this law. Yes. What's the problem with it? It breaks marriages. Okay, if you're not married, you get unwanted children. What else? Even if you do get married, you're still addicted to it and you have a greater chance that it will break your marriage still. So, but Islam is interested in preservation of family. So at the end of a line of zina, at the end of, why can't I just change the name of an adopted child? Why do we need to emphasize on the importance of marriage and all these rights and child custody at the end of the day? And why can't I send my inheritance to just anybody? Why are my parents, my wife, and my children guaranteed inheritance? I can't even write a will that can deny them. It'll be null and void. Father, mother, spouse, husband, wife, sons, daughters. Guaranteed. They must inherit something. In fact, if before I die, I start to do big sadaqah of my wealth, my family can protest to a court that I'm trying to deny them inheritance, and the court will say, we don't recognize that gift. Why can't I just will anything I want? Because scholars find there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas was sick and he was talking of how much he wanted to leave as a will. He wanted to give 2/3. The Prophet says, too much. Okay, half, no, too much. Okay, I want to give out 1/3. Prophet said, 1/3 is okay, but it's much. But it's okay. Because, and the Prophet said, it is better to leave your family wealthy and independent than to leave them destitute and dependent on others. So there's a maqasid and an objective there of ensuring that family first when it comes to charity. Yes, you can help others, but not at the expense of family. So what scholars find is, when you keep asking why, beyond just the law or the nas, the text that says, do this, pray, and do hajj, and give zakat, and fast. Yes, why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you may gain taqwa. You know, so Allah says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ, He has prescribed fasting upon you, as He prescribed it for those before you, that you may gain taqwa. Okay? What about other acts of ibadah? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, in Baqarah. Ya ayyuhan nas, ubudu rabbakum alladhi halakakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun again. You know, Allah is saying to mankind, worship your Lord who created you and created those before you, la'allakum tattaqun, so that you may gain taqwa. What's all this about taqwa? This is for taqwa, that is for taqwa. فَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ زَادِ التَّقْوَى. In the context of Hajj again. Hajj is for taqwa, fasting is for taqwa, ibadah is for taqwa. What's the big thing about taqwa? Why is taqwa a maqasid? Why is it an objective of Sharia? You know, that when Allah talks about He created you into nations, male and female nations on tribe, and He says, but the most honorable, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most honorable among you in the eyes of Allah is the one with taqwa. What's the big deal about taqwa? Why is taqwa so useful? And we'll discuss this on another occasion. Why is the purification of the heart so important to the kind of person you are or become? But it's what gives you your moral compass. It's what keeps you on the path of serving your Creator and not just serving your lust or ego. It is what strengthens your spiritual immune system. The way your physical immune system protects your body from bacteria, you have a spiritual immune system that keeps your fitra, your conscience, alert, clean, pure. That when you hear negative things being spoken, it's not 30 minutes into discussion that you realize, wait a minute, we're gossiping. Yeah, it's not, no, you are sensitive enough that the moment you move off the straight path, you wake up. No, like, wait a minute, why are we talking about somebody else? We've not even started saying something negative, but you're already on alert. Yeah. Do you know this person? Yes, I know him. Before anywhere, you're already on is it negative? You're going to churn this discussion. You know, that the moment Shaitan tries to touch you, you actually wake up. You know, why mayanda ganna kamina shaitani nazgun? Fasta izbillah. The moment Shaitan comes to you with a temptation, with anything, you instantly start to seek refuge in Allah. You're very awake. Your moral compass is sensitive. Your immune system is not asleep. When it comes to right and wrong, there's no confusion. It's difficult for Shaitan to catch you off guard. The moment somebody starts to praise you, oh brother, you are so great, whatever, your mind quickly goes, what do you want? Yeah, you don't start believing, you're right, I am great. No, you know, quickly, okay, what does this guy want? Is he praising me sincerely? You're on alert. Oh, thank you, here's a gift. You don't like, wow, dunya, I love this. Okay, what does he want in return? Is this a gift? Do I need to take it? Is it really appreciation? You're not carried away by gifts, praise, authority. You know, some boss of yours somewhere starts to talk, tells a lie, wants you to defend something. No, the moment you wait a minute, this is wrong, the greatest jihad is to tell the truth to a tyrannical ruler. Who do I follow? Allah or this? Do I need to do it bil hikmah, mawizatul hasana? Do I need, but there's no question of, let me go with shaitan here. Yeah. Taqwa is so critical. And that is why, kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum, all prophets that came before had to help their people gain greater taqwa. It's not a new requirement of Allah. It's always been there. It's what protects you. It's actually the best quality a human being can acquire. That's what's called maqasid. These tools, maslaha, saddu zariya, istihsan, they are what you call maqasid tools. They are interested in protecting the higher objectives and purposes of Sharia. That's what they are all about. Maslaha is sometimes described as public interest or the common good. And it's a reason why, you know, you've seen gymnasts in circuses, people on the trapeze, you know, like they jump from one rope to another, swing on this and all of that. Sometimes there's an accident and they fall. What prevents them from breaking their necks? A net. There's a safety net. If there's any problem here, these are the safety nets. Okay? These three are Sharia's safety nets. Whatever intellectual gymnastic is going to go on anywhere, your application of the Quran, your application of the Sunnah, Ijma, Qiyas, Amal, any of these, if in the application of these the scholar realizes that it's going to create mafsada, harm, it's not going to create maslaha benefit. If it's going to go contrary to the objectives, they will suspend all of this and go with those objectives of Sharia, those maqasid that are clearly coming from Nas. So for example, Umar bin Khattab, he realizes they have a had. You cut the hand of a thief. That's from Quran. Justice also is from Quran. Okay? He realizes because of famine, insufficient food, there's an increase in the amount of stealing by poor people. Three people went and stole a camel. They stole a camel. They took it to one corner somewhere and they slaughtered it and they were cutting it up. They would sell some, eat some, but they were apprehended, they were caught. And they were brought to Umar. I'm cutting a long story short. Umar investigated the case. He was going to, actually he had already said they should be punished, but when he got more information, he understood that the reason why they stole was because their guardian, the person who was responsible for taking care of them, was not providing for them. He was a gentleman called, I think, Hatim. Umar called the guardian and told him, this is what happens, and these people were caught for the following reason. He called the owner of the camel and asked the camel owner, how much is the cost of this camel? And the man said he would not have sold the camel for anything less than 400 dirhams. Scholars say normally that kind of camel actually costs just about 300. But this guy was saying 400. Umar said to Hatim, you will pay this person, the camel guy, 800 dirhams. As punishment, if you had taken care of these people, they wouldn't have stolen. So you will be charged 800, and the guy was given 800. And Umar then told him, if these people steal again for the same reason, it is your hand that I will cut. That's not how the Quran says it. Okay? But Umar is not blindly following the Quran. He knows the objective of justice, he knows why these people did it, and he knows one of the maqasid of Sharia is the protection of life, but also the preservation of wealth. If you cut the hand of these people, that doesn't stop this guy from treating other people in the same way. You've not solved your problem. These people didn't steal because they wanted to steal. Umar later on suspended the had. He suspended the punishment of cutting hands. Why? Public interest. Justice. Even though you will say, but there's clear nas that this is the punishment. Yes, but the punishment is there so long as it will achieve its objectives. But if the punishment ends up punishing poor people, and you don't address the cause of why they are poor, then you can't say you are implementing Sharia in a way in which it will achieve its objectives. That's why maqasid is important. Now, that type of thinking of Umar is called concern for maslahah, public interest. Some would say it's concern for the maqasid of justice, the objective of justice. What Umar did is sometimes called maslahah. Some other scholars say that's what is called istihsan. So different vocabulary, but if you look at the evidence used to establish maslahah, it's nearly identical to the evidence used to establish istihsan. We'll discuss some of the differences between the two. But for some, no difference. Saddu Zaria we discussed yesterday. Can anybody remember? Exactly. Something that you know is haram, but people have found a new way of doing it. They're trying to do haram through a halal means, you will block it. So if you think of all the new regulations that come up in this country every year, every month, new rules related to traffic. Why? Because people want to preserve life, so they bring new rules. New rules regarding rented property, new rules regarding waste disposal. All sorts of laws that come. These are all Saddu Zaria. These are all ways of blocking means that lead to haram. Licensing system. You can't establish a school without registration. Prophet didn't say you have to register. No problem. But in the interest of standards, we will put it. Yeah. And we will prohibit you to establish unless you've done this. So there are so many laws that are established because of concern for maqasid, and they come under maslaha, they come under Saddu Zaria, they come under istihsan. Actually, all you need is there significant harm that is greater than the benefit? If so, how do we prevent people from doing that harm? These therefore serve like safety nets. These are maqasid tools. So when all the intellectual gymnastics go on among the scholars, all they make sure is one of these tools will protect the maqasid of Sharia. Yeah. That at the end of the day, a fatwa does not create a harm. A fatwa doesn't have an objective that is different from the objectives of the whole of Sharia. So since the maqasid of justice, of protection of life, of family, each of these is supported by so many verses of the Quran and Hadith, you cannot come with one interpretation of an ayah, of a hadith, that will go contrary to the maqasid, and we will go with you. Yeah. Why? The maqasid is heavier in its weight than a fatwa that is creating harm. You have to do amr bil ma'ruf or nahy anil munkar. You can't do the opposite in the name of fatwa. So these are safety nets that try and make sure the methodology of ijtihad does not go against the objectives of ijtihad. Yeah. And if the objectives is to achieve the maqasid of Sharia, all of these are really to achieve the maqasid. All of these. Yeah. That's why you're concerned about the illah, because there's clear nas that it is a maqasid. That's why you're interested in hikmah. So all these tools are to achieve the maqasid or the objectives. But these tools in particular are most important. This one keeps unity in the ummah. Qiyas keeps us close to the text and the illah or the hikmah of the text. So where there's already a wisdom, it's taking the wisdom to a new case. Amal is ensuring that our interpretations are not too skewed, that we keep to what is the norm. Ra'ay of Sahaba, similar, so long as it doesn't contradict maqasid. Istishab, the presumption of continuity, that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. You're protecting the maqasid of innocence of human being. That everything is halal except what is haram. You're protecting freedom. Freedom to act, freedom to innovate, freedom to be creative. Everything is halal except what is haram. So this is protecting a maqasid of freedom, maqasid of purity. Everything is pure except what is not. Urf, good custom. Most good customs are good because they have stood the test of time and they are beneficial to their people and people understand them and it gives them an identity. So that is being preserved. Sharia didn't come to throw that away. Sharu man qablana, whatever is still relevant of the past, that is still relevant of today, we'll take it. Maslaha, public interest, Saddu Zaria, protecting from things that will end up in harm, or Fatu Zaria, the opposite, and Istihsan. Now, Istihsan is sometimes described as juristic preference. Juristic preference. Juristic preference. Sometimes it is described as equity, like in law, equity. Some describe it as discretion, just the jurist's discretion. What this means is, when the mujtahid finds that a new case is not handled by any of this. Take blood transfusion. No ayah directly, no hadith directly, no ijma directly, no qiyas with an illa, no amal of Medina, no ra'i of Sahaba. It wasn't being done before. It's not a cultural practice. Sharu man qablana has nothing to do with it. Now what do? Then you look at the maqasid tools. And the maqasid tools are trying to look at what's the purpose. In other words, at the end of the day, whatever fatwa is going to be done should be in line with preservation of life. That is a maqasid. Since we have nothing to prohibit it, and we know it's something we need to achieve, istihsan is a tool used to realize the maqasid, where there's silence in others. So sometimes istihsan comes when there's silence everywhere else. Istihsan would work. But some people would not call it istihsan, they would call it maslahah. These are terms that are interchangeable. For example, classically within the Hanafi school, they only recognize istihsan, not maslahah. Okay? No masalih al-mursala, no saddu zariya. Why? Because to them, the moment you are concerned about istihsan, you have already taken care of public interest and blocking means and opening ways, etc., etc. So their definition of istihsan, realizing maqasid, takes care of all these three, or the other two also. Shafi, early Shafi scholars, like Imam Shafi, was very critical against istihsan that was used by the Hanafis and that was used by the Malikis and also used by Ahmad bin Hanbal. But Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, Imam al-Juwayni, Fakhruddin al-Razi, other great Shafi scholars accepted maslahah. So today if you meet your ulama and you tell them, is maslahah important? They will say yes, within the Shafi school. So they would accept this even if they criticize this. But when you ask them, explain this in detail, you find they have handled your own concerns. So these are different terminologies, but their main objective is they serve as safety nets to ensure no ijtihad crashes and creates mafsada, harm. That it always comes up with an objective of Sharia. When these tools have become more and more important in any field of contemporary endeavor where you have nothing from the nas, where it is so different from the past that the past didn't have it. And when you say the past didn't have it, you mean it's not here, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. It's not here, it's not here. If the past didn't have it and it's not addressed in the Quran and Sunnah, because you need an ayah or a hadith in order to do qiyas. You can't do qiyas with amal. You can't do qiyas with something else. Okay? Usually qiyas means you're connecting it to an ayah or a hadith. In other words, you're able to do that. What did we drew on diagram, somewhere here. Take this ruling, apply that because of the identical or similar illah. So in contemporary society, where we meet issues that are not there in the nas, they are not there in these old sources, these become most important. That's why today the subject of maqasid sharia has become probably one of the most important aspects of usulul fiqh. It's become so important that some scholars actually prefer to study it separately because it is just so important. And so even though traditionally usul, maqasid, qawaid are all under usulul fiqh, if you say maslaha, saddu zariya, istihsan, any scholar will tell you that's what you study in usulul fiqh. Okay, like where else? You don't study these things in ulumul hadith. You don't study maslaha, saddu zariya, you don't study urf, istishab, you don't study ijma, you don't study qiyas when you are doing tafsir, when you are doing, because these are not subjects that you expect the muhaddith to grasp. Why? He is not expected to produce fatwa. A mujtahid and a mufti prepare fatwa, not a mufassir, not a muhaddith. Yeah, those are separate specializations. The problem we're having today is you go and get a first degree in Islamic studies or a master's degree in hadith or a PhD in hadith, and you start finding people who have nothing in usulul fiqh, but since you can say, I got a PhD in Sharia, you start use your name to create problems because you speak outside your field of specialization. Yeah, this is creating a lot of problems. It's like pharmacists, because they know medicine, the medicine so much, they want to start prescribing. Yeah, but you need to be able to diagnose. You need to be able to know what other medication is somebody on. You need to know whether somebody is expecting or not. You need to know whether they are hypertensive or not. You need to know so many things. It's not just I know the medicine. We want the patient to be better. That's the objective. And sometimes not giving the medicine is better than giving the medicine. Why? Because with some patients, their illness has gotten so terminal that if you say you're going to operate somebody who's got this kind of cancer, they will die from the operation. Their immune system cannot help them come back. If you operate, they will die on the operating table. If you don't operate, they may live for another 3 years or more. There are times when it's better not to give the medicine because the side effect has a greater damaging effect than the therapeutic value of the medicine. But that's for the doctor. It's the doctor who knows the consequences of this. It's the doctor who is interested in what's your work. The doctor wants to keep your file, not the pharmacist. The doctor wants your history. What have you been going through? Have you had this before? Is this a repetition? What other medicines have you been on? Which other medicines have you taken? So just knowledge of pharmacy does not make you a doctor. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Brother is asking a question we will come to. What if you have two options and both of them can cause harm? Okay, so here we're going to look at the consequences, and that is tied to something that was touched yesterday, Saddu Zariya, about blocking the means, and how do you make sure that, say for example, men and women in the same room can lead to fitna, correct? Yes. Do we then say it is haram for men and women to be in the same class? You will not just look at the fitna it can cause, you will also look at the benefit that it brings. You will also look at what is the likelihood of the fitna. As students, I want an honest answer. Is it true that you have cases of fitna of men and women having been studying in the same class? Yes, right? It has happened. But is it also true you know more cases of marriages that took place as a result of them studying in the same university? Yes. Marriage is sunnah. Would you say, forget about the benefit, let's just look at the rare harm and make our judgment based on that? So it's not enough to say something can lead to haram a knife can be used for killing, yeah, but a knife can be used for cutting tomatoes. Just because people can commit murder, if you say then ban all knives, you'll create more problem for the society. So how are we to cut our meat and vegetables, like teeth? How will restaurants operate? How are we going to slaughter our animals? So in Saddu Zaria, in assessing, we would look at what is it that scholars weigh, and probably we just answer that question now. Scholars do what they call they assess harm and benefit, okay? And they want to know which one is greater for every choice. Because in reality, on paper you can say this is good and this is bad. But in reality we all know that anything that is good has disadvantages. Medicine has side effects. And everything that is bad usually continues to exist because somebody is benefiting something. Stealing, somebody finds it useful. Armed robbery, somebody finds it useful. Potholes in the road, somebody finds it useful. The mechanics on the way, they are happy to have potholes. You know, like there's always somebody who looks at it from an angle where they actually don't mind the problem. So firstly, you would ask, if there's option 1 and option 2, in real life is which is the lesser, which is the greater evil? The convert who, if the family get to know that this person has accepted Islam, they're going to make life hell for this person. Should they tell the family they have become Muslims? If they are to stay at a table where alcohol is served, is that okay? Or would Sharia prefer be thrown out into the streets, or sent back to the village, or sent back to your country, or sent back to another school where you will not get in touch with Muslims and you are definitely not going to become a Muslim so long as they have some control over you? Is it better that somebody remains a non-Muslim, or is it better they are Muslim doing things they are forced to do? In real life, it's not good and bad. It's lesser evil and greater evil. It's easy to sit and just give judgment, no, this is haram, but you also have to ask, yes, this is haram, but what harm are you creating by saying it is haram? Yeah. And what's the option? So always weighing. You will weigh your options based on the harm. How many people is it affecting? If a harm affects many people, it is a bigger harm than a harm that affects fewer people. Agreed? Yes. So in weighing harm, the number of people being affected should be considered, and the scholars would look at that. So they will actually come with a maxim that it is better to cause harm to one or a few in order to prevent harm to many. Quarantine. Sorry? Collateral damage, yeah. But measured. So for example, at the time, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you find a town or a place where people are suffering from a plague epidemic, okay, and they're dying from cholera or Ebola or something like that, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not go in, and if you're in, do not come out. And if you die as a shaheed, you're going to paradise. Why not come out? Yeah, what was just affecting one small area, Ebola, and fine, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people would die at the end of it all. If you don't contain it, and you say even if you die, you will die as a shaheed, but you are not getting out, you end up with millions dying. So in order to prevent harm to many, it is better that harm is restricted to a few. So Sharia will come with laws in assessing which is a greater or lesser evil. So we'll not spend time on each of these, we'll just mention how many people are going to be affected would determine which is greater or lesser. They would also look at what is the severity of the harm. a harm that will kill is more serious than a harm that will only injure. Agreed? Yes. So severity matters. If the suffering is greater, then it will be a greater harm compared to one where there's less suffering. Suffering that lasts for a long time is greater than suffering that lasts for a short time. Suffering that would come from a policy that is reversible, we can make this law, we can put this tax, when it's not working we can remove it, okay, is better than a decision where it's permanent. If you cook food, you can't uncook it. You will also look at, if we put this policy, what are the side effects and consequences. So whatever has greater consequences is worse than one that has fewer negative consequences, or one that has more side effects that are negative would be greater than those who have fewer. So key point being, and then you'll see a combination of all of these. Today, people in sociology, in environmental studies, they have different types of impact assessment to assess how good or bad is this. Should we build a dam or not build a dam? So greater, lesser evil, and weighing them. So remember, and as was done yesterday, it's not enough to just ask how serious is the bad, but look at the good side too. It's not enough to say, okay, it is bad, like a person being killed by a car. That's bad. But you don't say, because you could be killed by a car on your way to work, you should not go to work. Right? A woman can be raped on her way to a mosque. You don't say, because it is possible, therefore women should not go to the mosque. You also have to look at the probability, and this is what Dr. Musli was discussing yesterday. Is it highly probable? Is it certain? Is it just probable? Is it rare or unlikely? What is the probability? What is the risk assessment? The greater the risk, the more the readiness for you to put laws to protect those maqasid.
There is hadith saying that a Muslim cannot inherit from non-Muslim and non-Muslim cannot inherit from Muslim. So, if there is a case where...
Sorry, I have to keep interrupting you.
If there is a case
Where?
A convert, a river,
Yeah.
passed away and left behind
Non-Muslim parents.
who are very poor.
Yes.
Need that inheritance.
Yes.
So can this insight be used to overrule those?
Simple. Yeah. Simple answer. Sorry if I sounded as if I was interrupting you. I was just trying to control noise. Yeah, you have a hadith. There are two ways scholars approach this. One, as you said, there is a hadith, two hadith actually. One where the Prophet ﷺ says, a Muslim does not inherit from a non-Muslim, la yarithul mu'min al-kafir wa la yarithul kafir al-mu'min. The Muslim doesn't inherit from a non-Muslim, nor the other way around. So that hadith makes it clear you can't have interfaith inheritance. However, and there's another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says there's no inheritance between people of different religions. Okay? So, from the point of view of the hadith, it seems to make it clear that you cannot inherit from people of other faiths. However, it is agreed that you can give gifts to people of other faiths. Okay? You can give a gift. So if this Muslim convert has family that is poor, one simple way is, while you're alive, give gifts. But what is another option is what is called wasiyah, where you write a will. So for example, Safiya, one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, wrote a will for 1/3 of her wealth to be given to her nephew who was a Jew when she died. So 1/3 of wasiyah can go. The area that scholars, so that one no problem. There's no difference of opinion among scholars on wasiyah. Why? Because the Sahaba did it, that's not a problem. The problem comes on the issue of mirath, where you're talking, and that's what the hadith is saying, la yarith. It's about mirath, not wasiyah. Wasiyah can handle up to 1/3 of your property from the view of the majority. Some look at it as it can be more, but that's not a discussion for us. So, on the area of mirath, what scholars find is there are some of the Sahaba, like Muawiyah, like Umar bin Abdulaziz among the Tabi'in, besides Muawiyah, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, there are a number of Sahaba who allowed mirath, inheritance, between Muslims and non-Muslims. And the issue is how? There's a clear hadith. This hadith of no Muslim inherits from a non-Muslim and vice versa is similarly understood as a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, a Muslim is not killed for killing a non-Muslim. Okay? A Muslim is not to be killed for killing a non-Muslim. That sounds general. But we have hadith of a Muslim who killed a non-Muslim, murder for no reason, and the Prophet said he should be killed. So what does the Prophet mean by a Muslim should not be killed for killing a non-Muslim? When the Quran says a life for a life, it didn't say which religion in the punishment for qisas. So the Hanafi scholars therefore qualify the hadith that a Muslim is not killed for killing a non-Muslim haribi, not a dhimmi. In other words, a hostile, one that is fighting. That a Muslim is not killed for killing a hostile non-Muslim. You can give he was hostile in one way and you killed him, there'll be another punishment, but not death sentence. So the understanding the Hanafis have is even though the hadith sounds general, a Muslim is not killed for killing a non-Muslim, they qualify it to mean it's talking about a haribi, okay, fighting, hostile, belligerent non-Muslim. They apply that to the hadith and understand the hadith therefore as saying a Muslim cannot inherit from a hostile non-Muslim or vice versa. So by understanding these hadiths to refer to hostility, not to dhimmi, because even in the wasiyah, you do not write a wasiyah in advance or to somebody who is hostile. And this comes from the verse of the Quran, that one on Mumtahina, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروه وتقسطوا إليهم, that Allah has not stopped you from dealing with justice and goodness to those who have not been hostile, they have not fought against you, so you can be good to them. But where you are prevented is where people have been hostile towards you. These are the people who you do not turn to. Of course, this is general. That doesn't mean you cannot forgive people who have done wrong to you. The Prophet gave 500 dinars to the mushrikun of Makkah, even after what they had done. But that was doing a peace treaty. And it is because of that that you find some scholars have no problem with giving zakat to non-Muslims. Giving zakatul fitr to non-Muslims. Giving your qurban meat to non-Muslims. Why? Because there's nothing in the Nas prohibiting it. In fact, Ikrimah and some of these people, they gave zakatul fitr to Christian monks who were poor. Yeah, zakatul fitr to Christian monks. Anybody interested in this subject can read Fiqh Zakat. You find it in Al-Mughni by Ibn Qudama. Umar bin Khattab, in his understanding of the verse on zakat, inna sadaqat il-fuqara wal masakin, of zakat, that fuqara are Muslim poor, masakin are non-Muslim poor. That's how he distinguishes who are the fuqara and who are the masakin. Others differ, but he had no problem giving zakat money to non-Muslims. It's a debate among scholars and they differ. The mu'allafatu qulubuhum within the categories of zakat are understood for some as those who are hostile against Islam, but who, if they benefit you would soften their hearts. It will not make them accept Islam, but they will cut down on their aggression towards you. So they have no problem giving zakat to non-Muslims. Ahmad bin Hanbal has no problem under wal amilina alayha, those who are in the administration of zakat collection, that you can actually employ non-Muslims in zakat collection. Why? It's an administrative job. For those interested in that topic, there are books on that. So on the topic of non-Muslim inheriting Muslims, some would sort it out on the area of there's no prohibition from the Quran and the Sunnah. That's where they would take it. Some would approach it that they consider it haram, but they look at the family and they pity the family and say it's not good that these people should suffer just because their son embraced Islam. So they would use maslaha to say, let them benefit. Yeah. So some would use maslaha, some would use istihsan, some would tackle it from the area of interpretation. Okay. Stop making noise. Stop making noise. What we're going to do now is, and this is just before we go into our groups, is to understand what is a madhab. What's a madhab? When you say madhab Hanafi, a madhab Hanafi is a school of scholars who have a methodology, they have an equation. They will go with the Quran as highest authority number one. In any issue, if the Quran says something, the Quran is highest authority. Followed, so Quran greater than Sunnah mutawatir. That's the second highest authority. After that, the next highest authority in the Hanafi school is istihsan. Remember, in istihsan, it's the maqasid of the Quran and the Sunnah. So here, the highest authority is istihsan. Istihsan. After istihsan, the next highest authority for these scholars would be ijma, qiyas. Before they go to sunnah, ahad. In other words, they consider ijma, what everybody agreed on, even if it is contrary to a single chain hadith, they will go with ijma. Remember, Hanafi was early period. Yeah. So and his teachers, Ibrahim al-Nakhai, these were tabi'un. He met some sahaba. He was the older one among the four. So when there's an ijma among all of them, to him, that is more authoritative than a single chain hadith. It's like Malik and his amal. Okay? It's just the Hanafi approach. Then qiyas. That if there's a strong, solid qiyas from the Quran or from the Sunnah that is mutawatir, so it's well established, the answer from that is more authoritative than a single chain hadith. After that, you go to other tools like istishab, urf, etc., etc. So when you say Hanafi school, you mean those who use this equation. When you say Maliki, you mean those who consider the Quran as the highest authority. The next is Sunnah mutawatir. The next is what? Very good. Amal. It's not as strong as Sunnah mutawatir, but that's the next. The next is maslaha. Maslaha. Public interest. But because public interest is actually maqasid and hikmah, then that is a stronger authority. All this is already in the book that some of you already have. So there they do the full something, page 99 or something like that. Anyway, maslaha, then sunnah, ahad, qiyas, istihsab, urf, etc., etc. When you say Shafi, you mean those who consider Quran as the highest authority, followed by Sunnah Mutawatir, followed by Ijma, followed by Sunnah Ahad, followed by Istishab. Istishab. So, istishab, highest authority. And lastly, qiyas. When you say Hanbali, you mean Quran highest authority, Sunnah Mutawatir highest authority, Sunnah Ahad highest authority, Ijma highest authority, Ijma. Now, okay, let's finish. Ijma high, I think istishab. They also consider qiyas. With the exception of Amal of Medina, the tools that Malik accepts, Ahmad bin Hanbal accepts. Okay? So, Malik accepts maslaha, sadr zariya, istihsan. What's the difference between this? Well, it depends on the scholar. For some, maslaha or masali al-mursala are those maqasid. Actually, let's start with istihsan. Istihsan is juristic preference where the jurist would decide that instead of going with, say, qiyas, he would go with something else. Istihsan is where a Maliki jurist decide on this issue, I will go with this single chain hadith and not this. Istihsan is where somebody changes the equation because he feels, or goes with another madhab's equation, because he feels in this case justice and equity will not be served. A maqasid will not be achieved. So he will still go and get another opinion. That's one definition or one understanding of istihsan. So istihsan is where the jurist leaves the normal ruling he would take of ijma or qiyas and goes with another ruling based on maslaha or urf or something else. Whereas maslaha is understood by some as mursala. There's nothing to go with. Nothing. No Quran, nothing. All of this silent. And the scholar just has to go with what's in the best interest of Sharia. What's in the best interest of the highest objectives of protection of deen, of family, of life, of property, akal, justice, social cohesion, etc., etc. Based on that, you will find some of the Shafi'i scholars bringing maslaha ahead of istishab. You will find Hanbali scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, istihsan. Istihsan Ibn Taymiyyah bringing istihsan after Sunnah Mutawatir and before Ahad, just like the Hanafis bring it earlier. Actually, because they bring this earlier, that's why they are ahead of all the madhabs in Islamic finance. This gives flexibility. If it's not in Quran, Sunnah, Mutawatir, this one gives flexibility. They can look anywhere that will achieve a maqasid and use that one. So it's actually probably the best equation for non-Muslim, Muslim minorities. When you hear of fiqh al-aqalliyat, fiqh of minorities, a lot of it is istihsan. Yeah. This fatwa that normally you will not inherit, they will use istihsan to go and get another opinion that will allow you. So it's always looking at your situation. So it's using a consistent equation. It's not just make everything easy. No, it's using an equation. The key thing about this is a madhab, when you say this scholar is a Shafi'i scholar, Imam al-Nawawi, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, al-Juwayni, al-Iz bin Abdul Salam, Ibn Kathir, Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, who again? Etc., etc. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Imam al-Suyuti, etc., etc. When you say these scholars, these are scholars of various specializations. Some are more hadith scholars. But this, when it comes to fiqh and the usul of the fiqh they follow, this is the equation they are most comfortable with. Yeah. When you say somebody is a Hanbali scholar, this is his equation. And at the end of this equation, he will tell you, if it's not answered by this, it will be this. If it's not answered by this, it will be this. That's how they will go. One thing to realize with all of them is their denominator. Yeah. All of them consider Quran and Sunnah Mutawatir as number 1 and 2 highest authorities. Nothing stronger than those. Why? They are the qati thubut. They are the ones that nobody argues about their authenticity. So when you talk about Muslim unity, Muslim disunity, any teaching in Sharia that is derived directly, clearly from the Quran or the Sunnah that is mutawatir, you will find nobody arguing. Actually, you don't need a madhab. You don't need the rest of the equation if this one solves your problem. Which month do we fast? Here. So nobody is arguing about which month we fast, where do we go for Hajj, which days, when do you go for whatever, is zina halal, is alcohol halal or haram, can you lie, can you cheat, can you beat up your wife, can you kick the dog, can you just look at it all. Why? Because they all agree on the maqasid, this area, particularly those that are tied to clear text. They all agree on the preservation of life and the protection of deen and the protection of the mind. They all agree on the need to protect family, wealth, stand for justice, respect leadership. They all agree on protection of animals and their rights, no cruelty to animals or destroying vegetation for no reason. They all agree on the need to be kind and forgiving, to be generous, to purify your heart, to be sincere, to be humble. They all agree on the need for commitment in the doing of good. They all agree on the importance of nawafil. They all agree on the importance of sadaqah in addition to zakat, of umrah in addition to hajj, of extra fasting in addition to Ramadan. They all agree we believe in one God and in the last day and the angels and this and that and this and that. Why? Because these things do not require ijtihad. Yeah. They come from clear text of the Quran and the Sunnah that nobody disputes about the meaning. Because of that, there's a qaida, there's no ijtihad where there's a clear nas on an issue. Okay? La ijtihad bin nas. So, where something is clearly taught in the Quran or in the Sunnah, mutawatir, no dispute, you will not find dispute among Muslims. That is what unites us. That's what unites us. But as you can see, the moment you leave Quran and Sunnah mutawatir, the differences begin. Each person thinking that the highest authority after Quran and Sunnah mutawatir are the objectives of the Quran and the Sunnah mutawatir. That's a greater objective. Another person feels after Quran and Sunnah mutawatir, the Sunnah that the people of Medina continue to practice and they all agreed on, that is the next Sunnah. For somebody else, ijma. For Malik, Amal of Medina is his form of ijma. For Shafi, it is broader than that. But if the Sahaba and all the scholars agreed on something, even though they know of a hadith and they still agreed on something, then he would go with ijma before he went with a single hadith. And Hanbali would stick with a single hadith. But in the Hanbali school, you find scholars who would differ with that. So key point, when we talk about Muslim unity, this is what has always united us. This is why we are in this room. Not because of this. The moment you pass this line, please chill, just calm down. Scholars greater than all of us put together start to differ after this line. The moment some evidence is dhanni. So, regarding thubut or wurud, only here is qat'i. Thubut. Only this. All of this is dhanni thubut. Because of this dhanni element, because of the dhanni element, this is a level of presumption, there's a level of speculation, there's a level of uncertainty. You don't break unity that we are certain about because of some other tool that we don't all agree on. But this is also why you will not get unity in the ummah because of knowledge. If unity to you would be sorted out by somebody becoming the best scholar in a particular school, you can see why he will differ with another. However, is this good or bad? This is diversity of medication for malaria. Alhamdulillah, we've got different medicines for malaria. Not just one. Yeah. This is why Islamic finance has helped everybody else. Amal of Medina is responsible for the creation of Islamic insurance, takaful. Not istihsan, not any of the others. And you can go on and on and on. Different madhabs have allowed different things that in some situations you find this achieves the maqasid better. And that is why you find scholars saying, they're not saying the Prophet said, no, the scholars are saying, this difference is a rahmah. This is what they call the usul of the deen, the foundation of the religion. This is furu. This is foundational. This is what makes all of us Muslims. After this, this is branches. This you can move on. What has helped in creating greater unity among scholars is this, maqasid. In the form of istihsan, in the form of maslahah, in the form of, you see, even the later Shafi scholars, they brought in maslahah, istihsan here. But of course, as we've said, each of these fulfills a maqasid. So when somebody is in difficulty, all of them agree you must take the person out of their difficulty. When you say, how are you going to do it? Then you see there are differences. This one will say, we will do it under istihsan. Others will say, we will do it through maslahah. Another one will say, we will do it through maslahah if these cannot do it. Others will say, we will do it through istihsan if this cannot do it. But they all agree the person should be taken out. When it comes, just one last issue for the sake of, okay, is even though these are qat'i thubut, you are certain about their authenticity, it does not automatically mean you are certain about their meaning. You can have difference of opinion in the interpretation of a hadith that is mutawatir or a verse of the Quran. So you could have this that is also what? This can be, you can look at what is called dilala. Dilala means the meaning or the implication. The dilala means the so what. Okay, so what? What's it telling us at the end of it? What's the action? What meaning? What's the implication? That's what you mean by dilala. Is the meaning and the implication clear? No argument? Or is it open to difference of opinion? So, even though it comes from here, it could be, dilala could be qat'i, it could be zanni. You can get qiyas that is clearly making a thing haram. But qiyas is qat'i thubut plus qat'i dilala. But you could have a qiyas that people are not certain about. So it's dhanni thubut, sorry. Qiyas is dhanni thubut and it could be dhanni dilala. In summary, what we have is a combination of the types of authority that we face. We could have on the area of thubut, by which we mean authenticity, in other words, the credibility of the information, the reliability, the historical, in some cases, credibility, that is one concern. And on that, something, on this line, you could have the dilala, the meaning or the implication. In other words, after I've finished reading this, is it telling me it is halal or makruh? What's it telling me? Is it clear? When a verse of the Quran says, when you finish Salatul Jummah, fantashiru fil ard, that's a command. Does that command mean it is compulsory for me to leave the mosque? Or is it just letting me know it is permissible? The Quran tells us that when you take a loan for a period of time, whether the amount is large or small, write it down, faktubuhu, and get 2 witnesses, etc., etc. You mean if I want to buy a sweet and I ask you, please can you give me 1 ringgit? I want to buy something, I need 2 witnesses, we need to write it down. Even though it's a command, does a command mean I must, it's fard, or wajib, or mustahab, or permissible? In other words, it's not as simple as I just read the Arabic. You also want to understand, how did the Sahaba understand this? How did the Prophet practice it? Then you can now say it is qat'i dilala. We are now sure what it means. Not just I read the literal verse. Alcohol, it says fajtanibuhu, keep away from it, because it is discouraged. Keep away from it temporarily, or because it is haram. It is when you read everything about alcohol, you understand it means it is haram, have nothing to do with it. In fact, don't even carry it or sell it or produce it, let alone drink it. So before you say something is qat'i dilala, that you are certain about the meaning, qat'i, or it could be zanni. The thubut could be qat'i, or it could be zanni. You have a hadith that says do something or don't do something. A hadith that says do not collect zakat on horses. Okay? It's a hadith in Sahih Muslim. Do not collect zakat, do not charge zakat on horses. It's very clear. Sometime during the caliphate of Sayyidina Umar, when he was a caliph, he realized that while earlier on, people who were keeping camels and renting out their camels, they were making more money than people who were keeping horses. When it came to running short distances, horses were faster than camels. Short distance running. So if you wanted to attack and get out with an enemy, it's better you were using horses. So both for business and for military defense, horses were more valuable. But they were very few at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. By the time of Sayyidina Umar, people were making a lot of money by hiring out their horses. In fact, the amount of money somebody will make hiring out his horse, in 1 week he would make what a person with a camel would not make in a whole month or more. Umar then decided, radiallahu anhu, to change the law. And he started charging zakat on horses. What does that mean? Was he going against the sunnah? You have another hadith. A woman, she wants a divorce, Barira. She wants a divorce from her husband. And the husband loved her, no, please, 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 please. And the husband spoke to the Prophet ﷺ, please, can you speak to her? So the Prophet goes, he meets her, and he tries to discourage her from the divorce. And she asks him a question. She asked the Prophet ﷺ, are you telling me in your capacity as the messenger of Allah that I should go back to this marriage? Or is it in your personal capacity just giving me personal advice? And he said, this is in my personal capacity giving you personal advice. She said, then I'm sorry, I cannot go back to him. But that if it was in his capacity as a prophet, no problem. During the Battle of Badr, just before the battle, after arrangement of the troops, everybody in place, some gentleman who has more experience in warfare comes and sees the way the Prophet arranged the troops. He was commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And he asked the Prophet ﷺ, this arrangement that you have made, is this wahi from Allah to you? We cannot challenge it? Or is it your own idea of harb wal makid, your own idea of military strategy and warfare? The Prophet ﷺ said, it is not wahi from Allah to me, but my idea of military strategy. Then he said to the Prophet, then I have a better advice. Those wells of Badr, put them behind you. When the enemy come, they will come thirsty. Don't give them water. Put the enemy, he rearranged, the Prophet said, good idea. They went. And it is part of why, according to historians, Alhamdulillah, the battle was won through Allah's grace. But the key point is, let me give another example. The Prophet, when he came to Makkah, Makkah was a very agrarian society, agriculture. And he noticed that people would get the flowers from the male palm tree and cross-fertilize it. You hit it on the flowers, the inflorescence on the female tree. Like pawpaw, you got male and female. So that's what we call artificial cross-pollination. The Prophet asked them, why are you doing it? And they said, we've always done it. That's how our forefathers did it. The Prophet has heard a lot of that kind of excuse before. Yeah, we saw our forefathers do it. Prophet said, then stop it. So they stopped. Later on, they came to complain to the Prophet. We used to do this and we had big harvest. You said we should stop. The harvest has reduced. The Prophet said, Antum a'lamu bi umuri dunyakum. You are more knowledgeable about your professional dunya issues. I mean, you gave me a silly answer. You didn't give me one good answer. You gave me the same answer people use for just blindly following their forefathers. So he gave what he thought. Sorry? Yeah. Sorry?
The style which the Prophet speaks.
Yeah.
For example, the Prophet didn't say once, I'm he didn't say A, B, C, D, that is wrong. So that's the method of talking by God, also by God.
Okay.
I think something quite significant.
Oh yes. Brother is saying, when you look at these hadith, the Prophet is not saying, in this situation, I'm talking as a prophet. In this situation, I'm talking as a commander-in-chief. In this situation, I'm talking as a judge. So what do scholars try to do? They try to look at the Sahaba who understood the Prophet ﷺ better. And with that, they classified the Sunnah into two categories. What they call tashri', in other words, this had shari'i implications, it had legal implications, and those that were ghayra tashri', it didn't have legal implications for all of us. They reclassified the Sunnah into different categories. So for example, some classified the Sunnah into three major categories. That when you say the Prophet did, the Prophet was a father. He was a messenger. But he was also a mufti. He was also a judge. He was a political leader. He was an advisor. He was a mentor. He was somebody who tried to have conciliation and reconciliation. When you look at the and there are some things that he was also a human being with certain particular likes and dislikes. He didn't like eating lizard meat. There's a kind of dub, you know it all? Good. So there was this desert lizard that was brought to him. Why? Because the Arabs ate it and it was a gift. And he said, no thank you, I don't eat it. And Khalid, one of the Sahaba, asked, is it haram to eat? And he said, no, I'm just not used to it. Can we eat it? Go ahead. And they ate. The Prophet didn't do it, doesn't mean it's haram. How did we know? By looking at how did the Sahaba respond. In other words, it's not enough for you to just say, I see a hadith. You also want to say, how did the earliest generation understand that hadith? Otherwise, you create problems. You take it out of its context. So, even though the Prophet ﷺ said, do not collect zakat on horses, when Umar looks at that, Umar's understanding was not, this was an instruction from the Messenger of Allah for us until the Day of Judgment. Umar looks at that as an economic policy of tax relief on people who deal with horses at a time when we want to encourage more horses. And that policy fulfilled its purpose. Since it's fulfilled its purpose, and you are to collect zakat on wealth, and these people are actually making more wealth than the people on camels, etc., as the new head of state, he puts a new law on tax. And he adds them to the people to be taxed. So by looking, and no Sahaba, a few of them were critical, but the Prophet said this, he said yes, but. Most of the Sahaba, what you call the Kibar Sahaba, the most knowledgeable among the Sahaba, they had no problem with that decision of Umar. Why? Because they understood the context in which the Prophet said so, what it was supposed to achieve, and why it was okay to change the policy. So, this brings us to the issue of the distinction between Sirah and Sunnah. Things that were done because of the context, and things that were done which requires us to emulate what was Tashri'. And because of that, you do not say the Quran says you cut the hand of a thief, and in the Sunnah we find the same punishment, which means anybody who catches a thief can cut the hand of a thief. That's rubbish. No scholar understands that. You don't say because the Prophet did it, I can do it too. It's Sunnah. No scholar in the Sunni or the Shia understand that because the Quran says 100 lashes for zina, that anybody can go and catch zina and do 100 lashes. It has to go to a judge. If you are not a judge, that Sunnah does not apply to you. The Prophet would declare war with these people, have a treaty of Hudaybiyah with these people, another treaty with this, send a governor here. Why? Because he was the political leader. He was the head of state. If you are a head of state, you can declare war, you can surrender, you can have treaties. You are the head of state. You can assign governors here and there. No Sahaba, nobody else has that right. So you don't say it's in the Quran or it's in the Sunnah that the Prophet did it. Okay, we are also going to start jihad, and we are also going to appoint this person as our new Amir, and you are governor of here. You have no right to do that. It's really dangerous to just open Sahih Bukhari and you say, I saw a hadith, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, the Quran says, and the Prophet did, and we will do too. And the Prophet is our best role model. No scholar called a scholar in this ummah ever thought like that. If you catch somebody, you take him to the judge. We were told yesterday about a Caliph, Ali, having a dispute with a Jew over ownership of his shield. Caliph. But he wasn't a judge. Because unlike the Prophet was the commander-in-chief, the Prophet was the judge, the Prophet was the Prophet was all this, the Prophet was all that. After that, we don't have a Prophet. So we can have people who can give fatwas. We can have those who are heads of state, but they allow somebody else to be the imam leading in prayer. We can have somebody who is head of state or the caliph, but he delegates the role of being a judge to somebody else. And when he is to go to court, or an issue comes with him, he goes and takes the judgment of somebody else. This is really, really important. Otherwise, if you just think, oh, we go with Quran and Sunnah, and you just jump into Sunnah. Actually, one scholar said, the sign of scholarship is knowing what to take from the Sunnah and what to leave. Yeah, not everything you take, because not everything applies to you. And that is why you will find in your material Ibn Ashur classifying the various types of Sunnah into 12 different categories. You don't say the Prophet married more than 4, I can marry more than 4. Yeah. The Prophet declared jihad, we can stand up and declare jihad. The Prophet broke a marriage, we can break a marriage. You have to ask yourself, this hadith was for the Prophet in his capacity as what? Yeah. In his capacity as what? As an advisor? As a head of state? As the head of his family? He forbade the women of his family from using gold. Yeah. He forbade Aisha. He forbade them from using gold. But we have hadith where he said, silk and gold are permissible for the women of my ummah, but prohibited for the men. Why would he forbid his own women? Because he didn't want the family of the head of state to be viewed as just living in luxury. And he made it clear to his wives, if you want to stay with me, these are some of the conditions. It's not haram. His daughter, Fatima, wanted somebody who would help in house help. Just help around the house. He discouraged her. It's not haram. It's not even makruh for anybody. But he didn't want that for his household. The problem is, if you don't study who were these hadith applied to, then you quickly jump to saying, then this must abrogate the other one. Therefore, actually using gold by women is haram. Or using gold by women is preferred. Women, it's discouraged. No, it's not so. But the key point here, we don't want to spend too much time on it, is you don't just rush into hadith saying, I saw a hadith. If you don't know the context of the hadith, how did the other Sahaba understand the hadith? How did the Tabi'in understand the hadith? Based on all of that, something can be qat'i thubut, which usually means Quran plus Sunnah mutawatir. If the qat'i thubut is also qat'i dilala, then you must do it. There is no argument about it. Whether it is saying you must do it or whether it's saying it's haram, it's no problem. Or it could be dhanni thubut. So there's a question mark, but with a higher chance that it is correct. Or it could be qat'i thubut, but it is dhanni dilala. So there is a question mark regarding the meaning or the implication, even if we are more inclined to one interpretation. Or we have question mark about the authenticity. It is dhanni thubut and it is dhanni dilala. Though we have a greater propensity or an inclination towards a particular position. The moment there's any question mark in anything, you don't use it for Aqidah, you don't takfir on it. Actually, leave takfir to judges, not you. Let a judge say, this is kufr, this person has done kufr. Don't you join that line. Yeah, just let the scholars handle that one. There's no benefit in you doing it. And the reason is because once there's a level of dhanni that you are not aware of, you didn't know the context of the hadith, so to you it was too clear. And you hear scholars are differing on this topic, and then you start to think they don't know the hadith. What do you mean by the Shafi scholars don't know of a particular hadith? Like, what do you mean? Who are the hadith scholars? Bukhari? Muslim, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. I mean, most of the hadith scholars were Shafi'i scholars. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Who again do we have? Ibn Kathir. Ibn Kathir is actually more known as a hadith scholar than a tafsir scholar. When you look at all the hadith that have been collected, you could say there are some hadith that Abu Hanifa didn't know. There is a hadith that Shafi didn't know. There's a hadith that Maliki, you can talk about that. But once you say there are schools, as the schools continue to develop, debate with each other, get hadith from each other, every school had hundreds of hadith scholars, hundreds of mufassirun and scholars of tafsir, and of usul, and of aqidah, and still they kept on their methodology. Usually it's not they are aware of it or not aware of it, it is where do they place it. The fact that some school didn't know about the hadith usually is an indication that a hadith is ahad. Yeah, so some would put it down here, others would put it here, others would put it here, others would put it here. And you'd have to look at why did they not regard the hadith in the decision making. Please, any evidence that belongs to these three, what do? You chill, you calm down. Yeah, don't contribute to disunity. We've got differences. It's not disunity. This is the unity. This is the source of the unity. These are tools to solve our problems. Don't use them to compound our problems. And then, even though the Quran is very clear on wa'atasimu bihablillahi jami'an, the Quran is very clear, the hadith are very clear on unity. That is qat'i thubut and qat'i dilala. We're very clear on that one. Don't allow something here to destroy this one. Yep. Okay. For example, punishment in the grave. Punishment in the grave is based on ahad hadith. Some, therefore, don't believe it. Others would consider that as a basis for takfir. Isa alayhi salam coming back. Some say it's mutawatir ma'ana or ma'nawi. In other words, there's enough hadith to strengthen it. Others feel it's not strong enough to be mutawatir, and they argue against it. So others don't take it as a part of aqidah, that if you say it, they'll just say you are wrong, but they will not say you are wrong and you are out of Islam, you're a kafir. Yeah. So some would actually just, if you bring something in, they would tell you maybe it's bid'ah, but so it's wrong, it's blameworthy, but not that a mubtadi is a kafir. Yeah. So you had people say the Khawarij, and you see this, for example, even in contemporary society. People who would say, if you're a Muslim and you are committing a sin, you're working in a bank, you're practicing riba, and riba is haram, then you are making halal what is haram. Therefore, you are not obeying Allah, and you are not judging by what Allah has revealed. وَمَنْ لَنْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ, whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed is a fasik, is a dhalim, is a kafir. So you've got a verse which describes a person who judges by something other than Allah is a kafir. Yes, please. Okay, next question. We'll come to that. Sorry, just to finish on this one. The way the scholars understood it, when it says, Man la yahkum bima anzalallah, whoever doesn't judge by what Allah, we described ahkam, right? The hukum, fard, whatever. Yeah. The question is not, are you working in a bank or are you drinking alcohol? What's the hukum? Do you agree it is haram? You say, yes, I agree alcohol and this are haram. Then you have given the judgment of Allah on it. You're a Muslim. But you say, but you know, peer pressure, that's why I'm doing this haram. They would say, you are a fasik, you're doing something wrong. However, as was discussed yesterday on somebody working in a bank or working in a legal profession, if you say, get out of the bank, your economy will be in the hands of non-Muslims. That will create harm. If you say, because it's haram, don't do it, you will create a greater harm. And so in Qawaid, which is the next thing we'll be looking at, you have that you are allowed to do a harm in a way of preventing a greater harm. A doctor is allowed to see the chest of a woman, whether she has cancer, in order to prevent cancer that can kill. She's not yet in darura, she's in haja. We'll come back to that. It's not darura that always makes something that's haram to be permissible. Sometimes it's haja. And as we will see, the scholars, and you see this in Al-Iz bin Abdul Salam in his book on Al-Kam, when a community is facing haja, it is treated like a darura. When an individual is facing haja, it's treated like haja. But the moment the community is facing haja, it is treated like darura. So, the moment a particular profession needs to be fulfilled, we need enough doctors. We don't have enough doctors. If you don't have enough doctors, what will happen? The society will fall into darura. People will be dying just because they can't see enough doctors. People have not started dying, but it will happen soon as the population is increasing and you don't have enough doctors. To make sure you don't enter darura, having more doctors becomes a fardu kifaya. It is a fard. It's a religious obligation on the leadership to create everything possible to prevent the society from falling into darura. Send them overseas for training, do anything. But it's a fard. It's not mustahab. It's not sunnah. It's not, no, it's a fard. And if the community, the leadership does not ensure that fard is fulfilled, you will get into darura, and a fard kifaya is now treated as a state of emergency, fardu ain. Everybody is responsible for getting us out of this situation. Everybody do something. We'll stop here on this. What time is Zuhur? Oh, sorry, Asr. That's it? Oh, I thought I heard an adhan. Yeah, okay, good. So we'll stop for prayers and we resume in 20 minutes, inshallah. So we resume at approximately 4:30. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Just by way of summarizing some of what we've done, there are 3 points I'd like to touch on. One is a diagram showing us the various specializations and the roles they play. The next, we will summarize most of what we have done in some of the qawaid of fiqh, and we will draw a diagram that summarizes the process of ijtihad based on what we've already done. Starting with a diagram, this would be a trunk of a tree with the roots. This level of the roots would be the source of Sharia. This is what you call Sharia, those eternal teachings from the Quran and the Sunnah. The eternal teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah. And Sharia covers every aspect of life. It covers Aqidah, it covers behavior, Akhlaq, it covers the mu'amalat, transactions, it covers acts of ibadah. In other words, Sharia refers to battery. Sharia refers to those eternal teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah. They are the primary sources, and through the Quran and the Sunnah, we also learn about the secondary sources. From the Quran and the Sunnah, we learn about Qiyas as a methodology in the Sunnah. We learn about Ijma, we see Maslaha, we see Istihsan, different names being used. But if you look at the arguments used by scholars to justify each of these tools, they refer them back to the Quran and the Sunnah. And so even though Allah tells us, obey Allah, obey the Prophet, and those placed in authority, the Quran goes on to say that if you dispute in anything, فَرَدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, then go back again. In other words, some scholars understand that to mean go back to the sources and extract other methodologies. Some say then do qiyas with the sources. In other words, still link whatever you're going to do with the Quran and the Sunnah, as we saw done by the Prophet, where there was no wahi on a topic, and he was even instructed by the Prophet, by Allah, shawirhum fil amr, consult them in those affairs of mutual concern and those things that affect the community. So, by virtue of analogy, the Quran and the Sunnah, this is the source of Sharia. Through certain methods, and they are different, you have usul al-fiqh. This is the methodology of ijtihad. So through the various methodologies, the scholars are able to extract rulings. And you have from these methodologies fruits. Okay, so what we have here is using the various tools of usul, the methodology of ijtihad. If, for example, something is clear in the Quran and the Sunnah, then it will come up to give us an answer. So, for example, one of these fruits, this is the fiqh. Actually, you could say it's the fatwa. That this is halal or haram or makruh or mubah, that's the fatwa. You could describe it also as the hukum. We will discuss the difference between the two. But this whole area is called fiqh or law. So fiqh is derived from usulul fiqh, and the methodologies of usul derived from the Quran and the Sunnah. So by virtue of analogy, if we use the metaphor of the healthcare system, this Quran and Sunnah refer to the raw materials, the plants, the minerals, etc., that are used to make medicine. This is what the botanists study. This is what the mineralogists study. This is the raw material. Usulul fiqh is the methodology of producing the medicine. It's the production of the medicine. When this is the job of what they call the industrial pharmacist. The industrial pharmacist. These are the people who produce medicines. Here on the side of the fatwa is the doctor. In the collection of the laws of fiqh, you have the chemist, or what they call the clinical pharmacist. So both the hukum on an issue or the fatwa would be given. Actually, let's leave the word hukum out. It's okay, you can leave it there. You can leave it there. So when you come to who is to prescribe the medicine, who's to deal with the patient, while all of these people are in the background, the person who deals with the patients, it's the doctor. He's the one who's got the qualifications, knowledge of urf, knowledge of priorities, knowledge of what is your darura, and all of that. If an industrial pharmacist who knows how to produce medicine is also qualified, he lives in the place, then he knows which kind of patient he produced his medicine for. So usually, the person able to produce medicines is usually able to administer. But that's not necessarily his qualifications. This person can live in any country and produce medicines for malaria, medicines for typhoid. But the doctor to administer has to be here. It's not done online, it's not done on phone. You want to see the patient. This person is called the mufti. This person is called the faqih. He knows the medicines, he studies them, he's collected them. He doesn't necessarily administer. However, even if you go to the clinical pharmacist and you say, I have a headache, he usually knows enough medicine to handle a headache. I had an injury, whatever, no problem, here's a plaster. He can handle all sorts of medicines. vitamins, he can give that one. But the moment it comes to a prescription medicine, the moment it comes to something more serious than just minor, even he would say, go to the doctor. So the faqih is like the chemist or the clinical farmer, the one who you find outside somewhere. The industrial pharmacist is the mujtahid. The mujtahid is the one producing new fatwas. New fatwas. His competencies are very similar to his competencies. The main difference between the two is, number one, this person is a local. He is around. This person, he can produce different medicines for malaria. This is the person in touch with the patient. He describes what to give. Now, this mujtahid, over the years, and the groups of them, and all the methodologies, they have madhabs. They have schools of medicine, Ayurvedic medicine and homeopathic medicine and conventional and this and this. These are all their madhabs. But they're all trying to produce medicine to cure. It is this one to say, you know what, we've tried this, it's not working, I think you should try something else. So that's all. These ones will continue to produce their medicines. But of the medicines that these ones produce, these are the medicines. Some are ripe, some are very ripe. Some are still raw, some are rotten. As seasons change, as time passes, some of the ripe fruit will spoil. So these ones will have to come up with new fruits. And this one has to decide which fruit to pluck. There's a fatwa, it was good at the time, but things have changed. The seasons have changed, not that one. This is the job of the mufti. The mufti is the one who will look into the various madhabs and say, you know what, in this situation, this is what I'll prescribe. Are we okay with this? Down here, you have the mufassir and the muhaddith. These are the scholars of Quran, the scholars of Sunnah. They are very interested in purifying the raw material to make sure it's clean. They're able to extract some of the active ingredient. They're able to help this person with the resources. But, as you can remember from the equations, it was not enough that a hadith was sahih. This person had other criteria. He would compare it with ijma, he would compare it with qiyas, he would compare it with amal, he would compare it with other things. He would see how did the Sahaba understand it. Not just it's authentic, it's clean, yes, but this will decide how much of this he would add as dosage in what he is concocting. If I use the idea of a shoemaker, between the faqih and the mujtahid, they are all into shoes. This one, you go to him with your torn shoe, he can repair the shoe. He can polish it for you. But if you come with a new size of foot, he will talk to this one, we need a new shoe. Yeah. This one knows what's already in existence. He doesn't necessarily know how to produce a new one. That's for the industrial pharmacist. Again, this is just a metaphor to just help us with some idea regarding the different specializations and who's upstream and who's downstream. Oh yeah. The point the brother is making is that from this one would say Sharia is flexible. Yes, it's for all time and all place. And that flexibility, actually we get to see just as the branches can move, leaves go, new leaves or new fruit also come. There are those things in the Sharia that are permanent. There are those things that are contextual. They keep changing. And that is why when we look at our various tools, there are those things that are qat'i thubut, qat'i dilala, those fundamental parts of the deen that will continue forever. That zina is always haram. that marriage is always recommended, that stealing is always haram, and we should pray 5 times a day, and. But then there are those things that are outside ibadah. They belong to mu'amalah that we must do. But then the bigger section of life is mu'amalat. Once you've got the following beliefs, aqidah, that's done. Once you've got the following 5 pillars, you're done. In the rest of things, everything is permissible except what is prohibited. All you need to do is just check. Does it contradict anything else? No. Is it useful to society? Is it promoting good? Is it stopping bad? Then go ahead. And the moment an old fruit is going to cause stomach trouble, you stop giving it. Yeah. The moment a fatwa was done before, but it is not giving health, it's now making people sick. What the doctor does is to look, is there another fruit that will be better? If no, then we need a mujtahid, we need a new type of fruit. To solve this problem, what they do is they realize they would want some of these people to work together. Yeah. You know why, you know what's the problem. How do you communicate with him? How do you let him know what you're looking for? Is what we're looking for available clearly in the Quran or Sunnah? Or will we have to go to some of these other tools such as qiyas and ijma and maslaha and urf and sadud daraya and istishab and etc. and etc. and etc. That's for this one. So what they try to do these days is get the scholars together into a fatwa council. It just saves time. So they will get some of the doctors, they will get some of the mujtahids. These are very good in usulul fiqh and maqasid and all these subject areas. They will get those scholars of hadith and Quran, etc. And they will sit together. And they will go through the thing step by step. And we will look at those steps in a few minutes. But because they realize that if you're going to do Saddu Zariya, if you're going to do maslaha, public benefit, you need to know something about the public. So if it's something to do with medical health or vaccination, you need public health officials. You need doctors. If it's to do with virology or immunology, you need experts in that area who can tell us more about it. So, fatwa councils, whether it's Islamic finance, whether it is the medical ethics area or biomedical ethics, any of these areas, they get different specialists to make sure that the ijtihad, the fruit that comes out, is actually relevant, it's useful, it's not just theoretical. And it's not fruit that will spoil quickly or go and kill the patient. Are we okay with this? Yep. Yeah. Okay. There are people who were regarded as mujtahid mutlaq. These were like absolute great scholars of the past, like Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, etc. While they were known as mujtahids, the mujtahid is the highest qualification a scholar can reach. Nobody else is expected to represent the Prophet in his absence like a mujtahid. Yeah, mujtahid, if you say the most highest qualifications, this is the guy who is expected to be well grounded in tafsir and ulumul Quran and ulumul hadith. He's supposed to be well grounded in qiyas, ijma. He is expected to know the fiqh of those who came before. Has this problem been solved before? How was it solved? Instead of going ahead and producing new medicine, which you didn't need to do that.
Do we know there are post?
Yes. You see, if you're a patient, it's difficult for you to assess a doctor and you tell him, I think you're qualified to be a doctor. You didn't study medicine. So how do you tell a doctor you are qualified? And usually out of humility, the doctor will not say, the mujtahid will not say, I think I am now a mujtahid. Yeah, they're humble. They'll give their fatwas, and if you ask too many, sorry, I don't know, go and ask somebody else. They'll ask what they'll answer to the best of their ability, and they refer you to somebody else. So very often, you would see scholars later arguing on whether somebody was a mujtahid or not, whether another scholar was a mujaddid or not. So Ibn Rushd, for example, Maliki scholar, he wrote the book Bidayatul Mujtahid, which is considered as one of the most respected books that cover the subject of khilaf or comparative fiqh. And he didn't just handle differences, but he handled the differences in a way that was so representative of those who held that view that the Hanafis liked him, even though he's a Maliki scholar, because he presented their arguments to their satisfaction. And he presented the Shafi'i scholars to their satisfaction. In other words, he understood the Shafi'i usul, and he understood the Maliki and the Hanafi and the Hanbali usul. And he even had views of other mujtahid and other scholars that didn't belong to any of the present four. Some of them just went obsolete. The Jariri madhab of Imam at-Tabari died. Ibn Hazm has really just remained in academic circles, but is not a living madhab in that sense. And many of these mujtahids, as we said yesterday, belong to existing madhabs. They contributed to the madhab. They didn't feel there's a need to start a new madhab, but they started a new opinion or two new opinions within an existing madhab. So yes, very often it's after the mujtahid has died, or people you call mujtahids, and everybody seems to agree, and the knowledgeable people know on this issue, this is the mujtahid. It's the scholars who are saying, this person knows more than we do. And after a while, years later, that's when people look back and say, that guy was a mujtahid. Yeah. But you don't want to wait for that. So what we want is, what are the qualifications of a mujtahid? Instead of waiting for one person to get all those qualifications, let's just have a synergy, get the people now. Do you have a professor of hadith? Yeah. How many of them? Between the three of these guys, it's difficult, and they are laptops, it's difficult to say there's a hadith they don't have. Okay? Why? That's their area. And if they need to ask anybody, they know who to ask. And there are these scholars of tafsir, and these scholars of hadith, and these scholars of fiqh, and these scholars of this, and that scholar of usul, and they're all there. Plus the doctors, plus the whatever. So once you get that synergy, it is considered an ijtihad of a jama'ah. And it is considered more thorough than the ijtihad of any individual. Why? Because the knowledge of hadith in this synergy group is more than just one individual. The knowledge of usul, the debates that will take place, end up with something expected to be better than an individual. They're not perfect, they make mistakes, they're still ijtihad. They may not agree on everything, but it's the best available. That's how we produce medicine, that's how we produce our solutions as human beings. The hukum, the word hukum has different meanings, but the one we'll work with, some look at fatwa as just an answer to a question by a mufti. Hukum shar'i, so you can have a hukum by a judge. What does that mean? It means, number one, a fatwa is not legally binding. I can listen to this fatwa, I don't like it, I go to another fatwa. Okay? Hukum, however, usually means there's legal binding. There's one meaning of hukum. So a judge gives a hukum. You don't like, I like this judge's judgment, or I don't. If you don't want to appeal, if you want to appeal, it can go, but finally it gets to a judge, and once he gives a judgment, that's it. But another meaning of hukum, which is what I'm more interested in touching here, is hukum shari'i is from the shari. Shari is the lawgiver. This is Allah. Fatwa is from the mufti. You never call Allah mufti. Fiqh is from the faqih. You never call Allah faqih. So hukum shari, when you say what is the hukum on alcohol, alcohol is haram. That means the default ruling on alcohol is the hukum shari. It's haram. But there can be a fatwa that made it halal for this sick person when he had to take his medicine. There can be a fatwa that made it halal for this person to drink alcohol because nothing else would keep him alive. The hukum is the default judgment. The fatwa gives you the exception, and when everything is back to normal, we go back to hukum again. The hukum on marriage is mustahab. It's not fard. It's not wajib. It's not haram. It's mustahab, or what some call sunnah. That's the hukum. But a judge may give a fatwa that because of the kind of disease you carry, because of this, because of that, it is haram for you. Or because of this and because of that, we would just leave it as mubah. Because of this, because of that, we would make it wajib. When it comes to because of something other than Quran, Sunnah, and the clear text, we're talking of fatwa. Ijtihad is coming in. So while there is an overlap between ijtihad that produces a hukum and ijtihad that produces a fatwa, as a general rule, the hukum is the permanent judgment on an issue. Usually, a fatwa changes with seasons. Hukum stays stable. So you will only find hukum of, when you say what is the hukum on blood transfusion, some, after everything they have done, they will end up saying, since everything is halal except what is haram, and we have no evidence that is haram, then they would say the hukum is, it is halal. And they would say that's the hukum. Fatwa is usually more individual, less permanent. But the key thing, there is an overlap. For most people, if they are not qualified in ijtihad, if you ask a muhaddith, is something halal or haram, he will just give you the hukum. Why? He is not qualified in ijtihad, he is not good at giving fatwas. It's not his area. The same thing with the mufassir. Yeah. So, if you have a problem, be careful who you take your problem to. If you take it to somebody who doesn't have the tools, but doesn't know he doesn't have the tools, and you know you have an exceptional problem, this is not just an ordinary problem. If you go to somebody who is not grounded in the tools, he will usually give you a hukum. Why? Because all he knows is alcohol is haram, and there's a hadith saying you cannot sit at a table where alcohol is served. So even though you are a new Muslim, sorry, that's the hukum. It's the mufti who would want to know more about your background. What would happen if at home you decided not to drink at the table? Anything? Ooh, they'll know I became a Muslim. And then, I'm finished. What do you mean? I know what my uncle did, and I know what they will most likely do. They'll take me out of this school, they'll send me to another school. They will make sure I eat pork, and if I don't behave well, they'll send me back to India or send me back to wherever. I'll be in deep trouble. Okay, so is this person in darura or is he in haja? And what would you do about it? We will look at that. We leave that there. There are some maxims. A maxim, 5 core maxims of Sharia. These are 5 sentences. Yes, please. The difference between ijtihad and fatwa. Ijtihad is the reasoning and the process. Fatwa is the result. Usul is guiding the process. Yeah. So ijtihad is what the scholar is doing, the process. Usul is how it should be done. And fatwa is the result, the equal to of the process. For maxims, there are 5 major maxims. Each one of them is a compact statement that summarizes a lot of what Islam stands for. Together, these 5 maxims summarize what Islam is all about. They hold within them the spirit of Sharia. They are derived from many verses of the Quran and many hadith. And some of their wordings come from hadith or are approximations of hadith. Each of them is accepted by the 4 schools. And every fatwa, every process of ijtihad, the development and construction of a fatwa, has to respect these 5 principles in the process of developing fatwa and in the application of fatwa. They are like your traffic rules. You know how to drive a car, but you don't know who should stay on the right and who should stay on the left, you'll get a problem with your ijtihad. Yeah. You'll come up with a fatwa, you'll have a problem in application. You can get a good fatwa from a scholar, but you apply it wrongly. So these 5 are like rules of thumb, ground rules to guide ijtihad and the application of fatwas. The first is that matters or matters are judged according to their purposes. Al-umur bi maqasidiha. That things, affairs, policies, actions, anything will be judged as good or bad depending on the purposes they fulfill. In other words, purpose, does it meet the purposes of Sharia or does it go against the purposes of Sharia? It doesn't matter what you're doing. If it goes against the purpose of Sharia, we will block it. It is called Saddu Zariya. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're going to end up killing somebody, we will stop you. Yeah. If you're the guy who knows how to swim and save that person who fell off the bridge, but when we came to call you, you are in salat, we will drag you out of your salat. And if you say you're on a weekend, we will throw you into the water. And if you don't come out with that person, we will take you to court and we will get you punished. Why? You're the only one with the skills to do it, and you didn't. You won't go to the court, but I was praying. Yeah, you can pray later. Can't save the life later. Matters will be judged by what's actions, by what's in the heart. What's your objective? That's what Allah is looking at. We only know what we see on the outside. We will judge to try and find out. We got two people. One person killed somebody. Another person killed another person. In both cases, we've got two dead bodies. How are we going to judge you? We will judge you by trying to find out what was the intention. If we find you wanted to kill somebody, we will call that murder. If we find in another case, it wasn't intentional, it was accidental, you did not mean to kill, we would call it manslaughter. Same result, different judgment. Why? Allah is looking at what is in your heart. We can't see in your heart, so we'll investigate to the best of our abilities. So this applies to the heart that Allah judges, but for us, فَحْكُمْ بِمَا ظَهَرَ, we judge by what is clear, what's open. So for us, we simply ask ourselves, what is it leading to? As a Muslim, you should live your life with purpose. You should have plans. You don't just do things in life. Al-umur, including your life, will be judged by whether you are able to fulfill your purpose or not. The second maxim states that certainty is not overruled by doubt. Al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak. Certainty is not overruled by doubt. Certainty means something that is upright. Shak is anything that starts going this way. Whether it is waham, whether it is shak, whether it's done, it's all in this maxim. Lesser evidence does not go over harder evidence. Okay? As a Muslim, you always go with the greater preponderance of the evidence. You don't live your life with doubt, you don't follow superstition. You are always asked, Qul hatu burhanakum, bring your evidence. But you don't just operate life as if truth doesn't matter. We should always move, even if it's on relative truth, move on relative truth you are more certain about. This is very important, and we will come back to this, because if you are certain that everything is halal except what is haram, doubt does not create a haram. Doubt does not create a fard. Yeah, you need yaqeen. Istishab comes from this. You are certain you did wudu? Yes. You are in doubt as to whether you spoilt it? Yes. Certainty is not overruled by doubt. Or you are even doubting you did wudu or you didn't do wudu. Yeah. You are certain 1 hour ago you didn't do wudu? I'm certain. Certainty is not overruled by doubt. So, stronger evidence is not overruled by weaker evidence. Okay? So, Quran comes before Sunnah. And Sunnah Mutawatir comes before this. And this comes before that. And everybody has his reasons why he feels this is closer to the Sunnah or to the Quran and Sunnah than the next one. And this is closer than the next one. A third maxim is that hardship must be eliminated or removed. Ad-darar yuzal. Ad-darar, hardship, must be eliminated. Suffering, ad-darar, must be eliminated. If something is harmful, it's bad, poverty, poor health, anything that you know, this creates hardship, Sharia requires that it should be removed. Call it by any name. Call it fitna, call it anger, call it hatred, call it poverty, call it constraint, call it anything that creates hardship should be removed. And so when you find, and this is Al-Umur bi-Maqasidiha is telling you the importance of Maqasid. But this is also another Maqasid tool. Sorry, this one. That certainty is an objective of Sharia. That we should try to look for truth. We should try to pursue evidence. We should try to maximize our certainty in decision making. But the removal of hardship is another Maqasid. And so you find scholars summarize. When you say, what is the purpose of Sharia? They will say it in one sentence, two things. They would say, Jalb al-Masaleh wa Dar'ul Mafasid. Jalb al-Masaleh, accruing benefit, wa Dar'ul Mafasid, removing mafsada, removing harm. And so you see so many verses of the Quran about remove harm, remove hardship, fitna, whatever form it takes. Everything a Muslim does in his life, the more you can remove hardship from people, the more valuable your act is. And so one of the most rewarding things you can ever do is to work in a profession where you are saving lives. Yeah. Even if it is giving a dog water, no animal should suffer hardship. Not on your watch. Yeah. You don't see people doing target practice with lizards or birds and you do nothing. You should always prevent hardship. The fourth one, al-mashakka, constraint, tajlibu taysir, calls for facilitation or ease. You can't always remove hardship. You can't always eliminate hardship. Or you can remove it to the best of your ability, but there will still be poverty. Al-mashakka, situations of constraint, tajlibu taysir, calls for the need to relax laws, make things easy. You're traveling, all right, make it easy. You can join your prayers, you can put your fasting aside. You're going through your periods, you can leave your prayers, you can pay your fasting another time. You're going through this, relax laws. You can't remove the hardship, so the person is still having the hardship of what to eat, but faman itturra, whoever is in that kind of darura, this ad-darar yuzal. Okay, whoever is in darura, faman itturra ghayra baghin wala adin fala ithma alayhi. Whoever is in a situation of darura, not that they want to be, not that they want to enjoy something that is haram, they are really in dire necessity, Allah says, fala ithma alayhi. They have no sin on them when they do something that is haram. And we'll look at that more slowly or more carefully. So, hardship must be removed. Dar'ul mafasid, you must remove harm. But where you cannot remove it, you must make ease. This is another objective of Sharia. Al-mashaqqa tajlibu taysir. Taysir means ease, facilitation. Taysir is from the word yusra. Allahu yuridu bikumul yusra, wa la yuridu bikumul usr. Allah wants ease, He doesn't want difficulty. Okay, these are all various verses for avoiding hardship and going for ease. Yassir wa la tu'assir, the Prophet ﷺ said. Make things easy for people, don't make things difficult. So when you see people who are in need of relief, give them relief. And lastly, custom is a basis of laws, of law. Al-ada muhakkama. Al-ada or urf, your custom, your norms, have the weight of law even in Sharia. Yeah. This is summarizing Islam in 5 sentences. If it's like, how should I live my life as a Muslim? These are the 5. This is a whole subject of qawaid. And each of these has what you call sub-qawaid. Actually, some scholars, they break this down and it ends up becoming up to about 1,500 sub-maxims under each of these. Yeah, like this is a field. Yeah, this is a field. This they agree on. And there's one that belongs to this that we will be looking at. Al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak. Certainty is not overruled by doubt. So, we've already discussed urf and why it is important. In Sharia, it comes with its own good. So, it's taken as default, it's good. Malay culture is good by default. Except those aspects that are contrary to Sharia. Everything else, keep your culture, be proud of the nations and tribes that Allah has made you. I'm proud I'm Nupe. That's my tribe. But I don't look down upon anybody else. I'm proud of my family, but I don't look down upon anybody else. Be proud of your Chinese or Indian or whatever you come from. Remember, Allah sent prophets to every nation. Don't let somebody come in the name of Sharia, in the name of Islam, and start telling you, change your name, change your dress, everything has to look Arab, everything has to look Pakistani, everything has to look Persian. That's not how Allah created things. The guidance of the Quran and Sunnah has sometimes been slowed down because of the cultural baggage we put. People want Islam, they don't want your urf, they like their own urf, it's good. Why tell them to change everything? Then they don't accept Islam. And if you find that what you understood, and I mean this is one of the uses of this, and we'll come to application in a minute. If a cultural practice, it's urf, it's custom, they do it in the kampong or the orang asli do it. Should you do it as a Muslim? Is it good? Just ask yourself, is it useful? That's question number 1. Number 2, does it contradict Quran or Sunnah? If it doesn't contradict Quran or Sunnah, then everybody chill. Just calm down. Does it contradict any ijma or qiyas? If it doesn't contradict anything, leave people with their urf. Why? Even urf itself is a source of law in Sharia, recognized with the stamp of the Prophet ﷺ. This maxim, al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak, the certainty is not overruled by doubt. Because of certain verses of the Quran where Allah says He has made everything on earth. Okay. He has made everything on earth for you all. Okay. He is the one who created everything on earth for you. Everything. Jami'an. It's all for you. You don't need permission from Allah to do something when He has given you permission. Is it understood? In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, there are obligations that Allah has put upon you. Things that are fard, things that are wajib, that you should hold on to. There are certain things that are prohibited, so keep away from them. There are certain things that Allah has kept quiet about. Not out of forgetfulness, غير نسيان, not out of forgetfulness, but out of rahmah for you. So don't go and start asking about them. It's rahmah. In another version of the hadith, that whatever Allah has not, the other hadith, what Allah has made obligatory on you, keep to them. What He has made haram, keep away. What He has kept quiet about is forgiven. So scholars understand that when there is silence in the text of the Quran and Sunnah on an issue, can you eat koala? Can you eat kangaroo? Can you eat, you name it, some new animal, some new plant, okay, durian, or something else, okay? It's not in the Quran, it's not in the Sunnah, it belongs to part of what Allah has created for you. Yeah. You do not need evidence for halal. Al-asl fil ashya al-ibaha. The premise, the foundation, default hukum on things is ibaha, mubah, permissible. And because you are sure that Allah has done that, they come up with a maxim that is derived from this, that the original premise, the asl of things is permissibility. Another way of rephrasing this, Ibn Taymiyyah says, whatever is not prohibited is in fact permissible. Whatever is not prohibited is permissible. This is telling you that everything is halal except what is haram. And because haram involves sin, it must be haram based on clear evidence or proof from clear text, clear evidence. Everything is halal except what is haram, not the other way around. Not everything is haram except what is halal. Can I wear this type of dress? Everything is halal except what is haram. Can I wear this kind of color? Everything halal except what is haram. Not, can I wear this? Oh, haram, except if we have evidence that it is halal. That's not Sharia. Allah has already made everything for you. And we have so many hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ getting angry with people who like asking too many questions. Look, when there's silence, just go ahead and use your common sense. Yeah. Surah Al-Baqarah. Go and slaughter a cow. You keep asking too many questions. And the law starts getting thicker and thicker and thicker. We'll come to that. So, this is a general premise, And for most scholars, the Shafi, the Hanafi, the Maliki, and the Hanbali, this is a general rule. Among some of the Hanafi, they take it, no, you cannot use or do anything with Allah's creation without Allah's permission. You can't use anybody's property without their permission. The others say, correct, but Allah has given us permission. Is it understood? So what a Subki, a Hanafi scholar, concluded was that so long as something is good, al-asl fil nafi'at, the basic premise in anything that is useful is ibaha. Okay? So anything good, the original premise is permissibility. If it's not prohibited, it is halal. Everything is halal except what is haram based on clear evidence or proof. General rule. The question is, does this apply to everything? Ibadah, aqidah, mu'amalat? We'll start with what there is no disagreement over, which is that in mu'amalat, adat, transactions, cultural things, interpersonal relations, dunya affairs, mundane activities, they are not like deen in the narrow sense of the definition. Everything is halal. Except what is haram. This is the general rule. Before you say something is haram, you need certainty in the authenticity and in the dilala. You remember this one? Authenticity and the meaning or implication. So now, you need to increase certainty, whether it is qat'i or whether it's dhanni, but not shak, not waham. Yeah, you need this al-yaqeen, la yazulu bi shak. Certainty is not overruled by, you need stronger evidence. So it's not just any evidence, but something that at least is strong enough to stand. So you need that. Let's just put that as something that is important. You need to increase the certainty you have. The first area of certainty is Quran. Somebody asks a question. I don't like to keep talking as if I like eating kangaroos. What's another example? Armadillo, thank you. So, is eating armadillo halal? Everything is halal, all the armadillos are halal, except if you have evidence that it is haram, that is authentic, and that we are clear and agree on the meaning. If you have the evidence, if the answer is yes, that the Quran says it is haram, then all scholars agree it is haram. But since you don't have that kind of evidence, and the answer is no, the next authority would be hadith or sunnah mutawatir. If you have evidence from sunnah mutawatir that armadillo is haram, so you said yes, then all scholars would agree it is haram. If somebody says, do we have a hadith? And our hadith scholar says no. No mutawatir. All right. Do we have a single chain hadith? Ahad hadith saying it is haram. If somebody said yes, I think there's one hadith on armadillo saying it is haram, you will have differences of opinion. The moment you say yes, you will have differences of opinion, divided positions. The Hanbali and the Shafi, who consider a single chain hadith as having the authority to make a thing haram, they will say, yes, based on that hadith, armadillo is haram. If the hadith scholar is still there and he says, yes, there is, the Hanafi scholar would say, all right, I will respect the hadith, but it's not enough for me to say it is haram, because it's an ahad hadith. But an ahad hadith can do what is called makruh tahrimi. You remember the 7 for the Hanafi? So they would say it's makruh tahrimi. The Maliki would say, is this ahad hadith? You'd have two opinions within the Maliki. Is this ahad hadith supported by Amal of Medina? And you say no. Were there armadillos there? Yes. If there were, and there's nothing saying that they considered armadillos to be prohibited, we don't have anything there, all we have is a hadith alone saying it is haram. So you say the hadith is there, Malikis will say, sorry, it's not supported by Amal of Medina, so it's shadh. Shadh means we really don't know what to do with the hadith. It's an exceptional situation, but we're not going to create a hukum based on something rare that Medina knew nothing about. Another group of the Maliki would say single chain hadith, and there are other things to eat, and you trust it, then we'll just say makruh. Why will they not say haram? Because to them, this evidence is not enough to overturn the evidence that made everything halal except what is haram. This is based on Quran, everything. Adam and Eve going to the garden, Allah says eat everything except. The general rule has been everything halal except what is haram. Haram is specified. Halal is not. Halal is just the default. So you find differences there. What if, no, there's no hadith on armadillo. Okay? No hadith on armadillo. So the no continues. No hadith. You're going to get different schools deciding what to do. As we said before, after this line, after here, is it in Quran? No. Is it in hadith? No. Actually, it's not in Quran, it's not in hadith mutawatir. Here, you do what? You calm down. Just wear your seatbelt. Don't stand up. Don't get angry. Scholars greater than you will differ. Is it understood? Yeah. And from here onwards, you can see, because for some, the next authority should not be Ahad Hadith. It should be Amal of Medina. For others, they would like to first ask, wait a minute, before we go into that, what does ijma? Any ijma? Can we do qiyas between armadillo and anything else? Maslaha, urf. In short, all these tools of ijtihad. And if after everything, anything from here, 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 no, there's no prohibition, then it finally comes halal. Why? Because it's really, this is back to original. Everything is halal, except what is haram. Haram, you need a process to make it haram. If you can't make it haram, it goes back to halal again. What's the point we're making here? That there's a systematic approach for scholars when they are going to try and separate how they feel about an issue and what is the hukum of Sharia on an issue. Not I like it, I don't like it. No, you have to stop and ask yourself. When somebody says birthday parties, okay, your neighbor or somebody wants to celebrate their birthday. First question, is it ibadah or is it mu'amalat? If it is ibadah, then you will have differences of opinion among scholars. If, however, you say, no, birthday is not ibadah, it's urf. It's custom of Western or this country or that group. Is it custom? Yes. This custom, is it under ibadah or mu'amalat? You say it's mu'amalat. Then they will say everything is halal except what is haram. Not whether you like it or not. Do you have an ayah? If you say yes, bring it. If we are satisfied that it is qat'i, dilala, making it haram, then we will all say haram. No need to go further. If you can't say it is haram, we go to the next step. Anything in hadith mutawatir. If it's not haram from here, then please calm down. Put the shower on, go have a bath. You know, just relax. Don't create hatred. Don't create problems. Don't let this become a fitna. If nothing in hadith ahad making it haram, you're moving more to tools of ijtihad, juristic reasoning. Of course, for your birthday, they can say, yes, in your birthday you have alcohol. Okay, then the alcohol is the problem, not the birthday. There's men and women dancing together, whatever. Oh, that is haram, not the birthday. If you can remove the haram, leave the halal there. And then you look at ijma and qiyas and all this, etc., etc. And if you have nothing, then don't speak in the name of Allah. Don't say Allah or His Prophet consider it. Don't use the word haram. Say you don't like it. But don't use terminology that implies Allah will punish. When you say haram, it means there's a sin. When you say there's a sin, you mean Allah directly or through His Prophet has condemned this. If, however, you had nothing from the Quran or Sunnah, please be careful. Yes.
Hello. How about Maulid and Tahleel?
Good.
Is it haram or no? Thank you.
So, one question. Maulid, is it ibadah or mu'amalat? Mu'amalat? All agree it's mu'amalat? Anybody saying it's ibadah? Yes. Okay. Good. For some, if a mu'amala has the form of regularity, periodic, or they look at it as you are copying Christians in their ibadah, then they look at it as an ibadah. We're looking at those who are criticizing it, okay? Once you say it is ibadah, you will get scholars behind you. Once, however, you say it's mu'amalat and it has nothing to do with ibadah, then it will go along this line. Some look at it as, well, if I can have a birthday with my child, why can't I commemorate the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ? And if you want to say no, no problem. Which ayah? None. Which hadith mutawatir? None. Then chill. But just for the sake of argument, let's carry on. Any hadith ahad that is clear, not just, some way you want to put it. Any qiyas, any maslaha, anything. If at the end of the day, it's just calling people, sharing food, remembering the seerah, that's all you're doing, somebody says, but that's good. And there's nothing wrong with it. Then it goes back to the premise, everything is halal except what is haram. This is mu'amalat. From armadillos to kangaroos to the whole of them. Shark fin soup. Everything halal except what is haram. Anything clear in the Quran against sharks or shark fin? Nothing. Anything in mutawatir hadith? Nothing. Anything in ahad hadith? Nothing. Anything in ijma? Nothing. Anything in qiyas? The Prophet ﷺ forbade. One of the things that some of these jahiliyyah people would do, a guy is traveling, he feels hungry, where should I get some food? He will get a knife and cut a part of the hump of a camel, live camel. Cut it. The Prophet said that is haram and that thing is najas. You can't eat it. It's prohibited. Okay? Now, so, while you don't have anything clear, Quran, Sunnah, whatever, you do have an illah of cruelty to animals that makes the fin najas and haram for you to treat an animal that way. So from here it will be blocked. And the scholars will have no problem with that. Why? The qiyas is too solid. Where they will have a slight problem is where the question is all shark fin produced that way? If the answer is no, there are a lot of sharks that people will catch to eat and they will use the fin, then it's difficult to say haram. However, when they move down, you remember Saddu Zaria? Yes. If to block the means, they feel there's a way of blocking, they will look for other alternatives, regulation, all sorts of things they would do. Instead of saying all, don't touch sharks, everything, they'll block that means. They will look for other means of regulation. But they will be concerned about solving that problem. I got 30 minutes. Yes?
How about Tahlil Arwah, where they do like a kanduri after a person passed away? And the second question is there a thing called bid'ah hasanah? Thank you.
This mu'amalat, your tahlil, is it mu'amalat? Ibadah, then it's not this, okay? What's the other one you asked? Bid'ah hasanah. Does bid'ah apply to mu'amalat? Does bid'ah apply to mu'amalat? Eating food, is it mu'amala or ibadah? Mu'amalat. Any problem? No. Aisha radiallahu anha said, the first bid'ah innovated by people after the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was they started eating until they were full. Yeah, that was the first bid'ah. Aisha used the word bid'ah to describe overeating. Why? Because the Prophet was against it. Bid'ah has different definitions. For some scholars like the Shafi, Anything new after the Prophet ﷺ, anything new after the Prophet ﷺ is bid'ah. Whether it is good, whether it is bad. So long as the Prophet didn't know about it, it's bid'ah. If Sahaba did it, then it's a good bid'ah. If it was wrong, then it's a bad bid'ah. And this has been the main opinion of Imam Shafi and many scholars within the Shafi, some among the Maliki, some among the Hanafi school. So Imam As-Suyuti said there's good bid'ah and bad bid'ah. Imam Shafi, Imam An-Nawawi, Al-Iz bin Abdus Salam. Al-Iz bin Abdus Salam, he was nicknamed Sultan al-Ulama. He is a great scholar. He said bid'ah is of 5 types. Bid'ah that is wajib, bid'ah that is mustahab, mubah, makruh, and haram. Why? Because to him, bid'ah was the literal meaning of bid'ah. The literal was the technical. Is it understood? Allah is Badi'us Samawati wal Ard. He is the originator of the heavens and the earth. Bid'ah is not a negative term. So they use the word bid'ah in its literal sense as the technical meaning that it applies to everything. So the moment you come up with anything, whether it is mu'amalat or ibadah, they still use everything as halal except what is haram. So if you're going to say some dhikr group is haram, and you say it's ibadah, no problem. Bring us the evidence from the Quran, Sunnah, Ahad. Find one way of telling us it's haram. If you can't say it's haram, it goes back to halal. Do we understand that paradigm? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want you to understand it. Do we understand it? So for these scholars, when it comes to ibadah, they ask questions like, did the Sahaba operate on the assumption that in ibadah everything was halal except what is haram? Or did they operate under the assumption that in ibadah everything is haram except what is halal? Because for some scholars, they took it that in ibadah everything is haram except what is halal. And for you to say something is halal, it needs to have evidence from the Quran, from the Sunnah, or Ijma, or companions. If you can bring evidence that it is permissible, then fine. Other scholars would add plus all this ijma, or what we call tools. But generally, they would take it the default in ibadah is everything haram except what is halal. These scholars are asking, in the mind of Sahaba, the usul or the qawaid that the Sahaba were operating with, was it that in ibadah everything was haram except what was halal, or the other way around? They look at cases. The Prophet was praying with Sahaba. He rises from ruku, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Somebody with no permission from the Prophet says, Hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fihi. And the Prophet said, accepted. In the head of that Sahaba, was he operating on the assumption that everything was haram except what was halal, or everything was halal except what the Prophet prohibited? During the time of the Prophet, a Sahabi at the end of every Fatiha recitation would recite Surah Al-Ikhlas before he went into ruku. His case was referred to the Prophet ﷺ. Why? These Sahaba were concerned, we've never seen this before. And the Prophet said, ask him, why is he doing it? Why would the Prophet not just say it's ibadah, everything is haram except what I have told you to do? Why would the Prophet want to know why he's doing it? So the answer comes, he says he loves that ayah. It reminds him of Allah and he loves Allah. And the Prophet said, tell him he would be with the one he loves. Bilal, Prophet ﷺ said, I had a vision and I could hear your footsteps in the garden of paradise. What are you doing that's good that I am not aware of? And he said, well, one thing I know I do, anytime I do wudu, I'll do 2 nawafils. These scholars say, in the mind of Bilal, everything was halal except what was haram. So to these scholars, whether it is ibadah, whether it is mu'amala, it will go through the same criteria of what is acceptable. In other words, this usul is the criteria for identifying what's acceptable, what's not. Some other Sahaba came to the Prophet, and one said, I am going to fast every day. Another one, I'm going to do tahajjud every day, every night. Another one, I'm going to castrate myself. I don't want to have children, I'm not getting married. Why? They want to dedicate themselves to the deen. Everything halal, except what is haram. But for one of them, Prophet ﷺ said, but your body has a right over you, so you can't do that fasting every day. So he recommended an alternative. Why? Because what he was doing was contradicting the rights of the body. Your body is a gift, you have to take care of it. You can't commit suicide, it's not yours. It belongs to Allah, you have to take care of your body. In other words, the rights of the body conflicted with what you wanted to do. The other one, I'm going to spend all night. Yeah, but you are married and your wife has a right over you. She has a right to sexual relations, and therefore what you want is conflicting with an existing right of the wife. You're marrying her with the understanding that she has a right to sexual relations. So what you want contradicts something that's already in the Sharia. We would have said yes, but it creates a problem somewhere else on the rights of the wife. And the other one, I'm not going to marry. Oh, that contradicts my sunnah. Yeah. So, what these scholars say is, everything is halal except what is haram. Any bid'ah you come up with, we will assess it on its merit, whether it's ibadah or mu'amalat, and they will take it through the process. That's one perspective. The other perspective, which is held by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Shatibi, number of other great scholars, they take it that the Prophet said, follow my sunnah and the sunnah of my rightly guided. So in areas of ibadah, if the Prophet did it and the Sahaba did it, then it's fine. You cannot call it bid'ah. But since in many hadith, kullu bid'atin dalal, it described bid'ah as dalal, as misguidance, then they understood bid'ah by definition is misguidance, that there's no good bid'ah. But these understood the word bid'ah as specific. Ibn Taymiyyah does not talk about, and Shatibi do not talk about bid'ah in mu'amalat. So when they say kullu bid'atin dalal, they don't mean kullu means kullu in mu'amala and ibadah. They mean kullu in ibadah. And ibadah usually stands for ibadah and aqidah. The other ones who say kullu bid'atin dalala are also not saying kullu means kullu, but kullu bid'atin dalal, every bid'ah is misguidance if it contradicts Quran and Sunnah. They all understand the hadith, they all qualify it differently. For Ibn Taymiyyah and others, everything haram except what there is evidence. If there's no evidence, don't do it. So if after prayer you want to sit and do dhikr, they would say, wait a minute. Ibadah, yeah, don't do it until we get permission. Is there anything in the Quran that says you can sit together and do dhikr together? No. Anything in the Sunnah? They say no. Anything in the practice of the companions? No. Then stop it. Then stop it. You got enough dhikr and everything to do. Don't add excess baggage in the deen. Keep Islam simple. Other people had good ideas of good bid'ah. That's how they got Christmas. That's how they got all sorts of things. So in many of these, of course, this group will say, but this kind of thinking was not the thinking of the Sahaba. But they will say, but it was the thinking of Abdullah bin Umar. But they would say, but Abdullah bin Umar was not regarded as one of the mujtahids among the Sahaba. When you say the scholarly ones who did fatwas that were recognized in ijtihad, it was Umar, Abu Bakr, Aisha, Zayd, Ali, etc. However, it's still the opinion of a Sahaba and it still has its grounding. This is very, from the Maqasid point of view, this opinion is trying to do Saddu Zariya. It's trying to protect acts of ibadah, keep them simple, keep them the way the Prophet left. If you want to be creative, go and do so in mu'amalat. Yeah, go and solve poverty, go and improve the education, go and do mu'amalat and improve things. Leave ibadah the way they were. So this is concerned about a good interest. They want to protect the deen. This group is interested, even though it sounds academic, it's interested in protecting the procedure and the paradigm, the mindset of how did the Sahaba think. So one group would look at bid'ah as being in ibadah and in mu'amalat. And it can be good and it can be bad. Bid'ah like overeating, Aisha would describe as bad. Ibn Taymiyyah and others do not recognize bid'ah in mu'amalat. They say, no, the topic of bid'ah, we're not talking about mu'amalat. It's in ibadah and aqidah. Because the difference of opinion on this topic comes from the usul, it's on the equations. You will not solve this by quoting scholars. You will have to convince those who hold this view that it is wrong. And you've got a big job because you have many usul scholars holding this and many usul scholars holding this. This is where difference of opinion, particularly for people like us, just respect it. But what do they all have in common? They all agree that any innovation that contradicts the Quran and Sunnah would be prohibited. Anything you are bringing into the deen to say people should do it as wajib, you are making wajib. Remember, wajib and fard are the opposite of what? Haram. Yeah, so the evidence, if you're going to say something is fard or wajib, you will need to bring evidence from the Quran or Sunnah, etc., etc. Why? Because you're saying if you don't do it, there's a sin. So the moment you're telling people should do Mawlud, everybody, even Suyuti and all those scholars who will support Mawlud, the moment you are saying people should do it, they'll say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If you want to do it, do it. But when you start saying people should do, then they will say this is a bid'ah. Even they will say that's a bid'ah. That is not hasana. It's a bid'atun sayyah. So they do have what they have in common. They have where they differ. The more important part just a minute. Just a minute, please. Okay. What were you saying, sorry? The state.
How to impose Mawlid and ask civil servants to go out to processions on the outside.
To
Do processions.
yes.
As the state government.
Regarding the powers of the state, you need to look at a number of things. Actually, hold on to your question. Let's finish what we're doing because it's relevant to this. Okay. When we say something is good, we've said yesterday that earlier today that good is usually mixed with bad. Everything with advantage has some disadvantage. So when you say something is good, what you really mean is that the advantages are greater. What we're going to look at is these maxims of Sharia and how to handle people in difficulty. This is the subject of rukhsa, or licenses, concessions. When somebody is in difficulty, the scholars all agree that if he is facing or she is facing darura, dire necessity, real fear for threat of life or actual threat of life, when it comes to darura, everything is permissible for the person in darura. That one is not a problem because there's ayah to back that. The issue, there's another thing. When somebody is not in darura, the next problem is he is probably in haja. Haja is a level of difficulty that is not as serious as darura. So, a person whose daruriyat, these are those maqasid, those objectives of Sharia that are essential for life, essential for decent, humane living. If the daruriyat, those essentials like food, like medicine, if they are threatened, the person whose daruriyat has been threatened is described as being in darura. Are we together? Hajiyat, if your hajiyat, which are those things that support the darura. So let's just say these are essential things for life sustenance. These are darura. Then all the agriculture and security that prevents people from falling for life being threatened, these are the hajiyat. These are the daruriyat, capital D, capital H. Those luxuries that are nearly endless, the ice cream, the chendo, the cheesecake, tahsiniyat, these are those luxuries and comforts of life. Usually, if you are facing haja, difficulty, you can't pay school fees, you can't pay electricity bill, you will not help people. You won't help other people with their problems. Why? You've got your own problems. But if you are facing tahsini, you're in a level of comfort where it's easier to solve other people's problems. So tahsini is a maqasid. But this is the priority. Daruriyat, hajiyat, and tahsiniyat. When tahsiniyat are threatened, there's no rukhsa, there's no concession. Okay? You can't have the ice cream, you will not be allowed to do something haram. When daruriyat are threatened, you will be allowed. When hajiyat are threatened, this is where I'd like us to look at a bit more carefully in the next few minutes. General rule. The greater the hardship you are facing, you are moving from tahsini to haja to darura, the more the relief. Here would be a minor haram and then major haram. If you are facing tahsini, no rukhsa. If you are facing tahsini, no concession. You cannot do minor haram, you cannot do major haram. Is it understood? If you are facing haja, you can do minor haram, but you cannot do a major haram. If you are facing darura, you can do minor haram, you can drink alcohol. You can sit at the table, and you can drink because life is threatened. But if life is not threatened, you'll be kicked out of the house as a convert. A minor haram will be permissible, but not a major haram. They will allow you to sit at a table where alcohol is served, but not drink it. Unless if you will be in darura, then they will allow you to drink it. One way of distinguishing between minor haram and major haram is the distinction between what is the mafasid, what is it that is haram, and what is it that is leading to haram. So you can have something that is haram, okay? Like intoxication, like murder, killing somebody, like zina. These are haram in and of themselves. Then you've got certain things like holding the hand of a girl, that can lead to haram. Looking, that can lead to haram. Being alone in a room, that can lead to haram. This is haram also, but this is haram because it's a means that leads to. This is haram of the destination. This is the actual haram that is being prohibited. This is what we are afraid of. That's why these are haram. If however, so zina is haram. Being alone with a man is also haram. But this is not as serious as zina. Are we together? This is haram because it leads or could lead to zina. Don't touch her on any part of her aura. Don't touch a woman who is not halal. Why? It could lead to zina. Don't see the aura. It could lead to. However, when a woman is facing a haja, she wants to find out if her illness or whether she has cervical cancer or not. She's been advised, check every 6 months or check every so often. She's not in darura, life-threatening, whatever. She's not in that. But she is in a state of haja. If there was a gun at her head, do zina or you will be killed. If she does zina, there's no sin on her. Do we understand? Because life is threatened, the haram, the major haram of the ends will be permissible because she's in a darura situation. But if she's in a haja situation, not darura, then the haram still stays haram, but she can stay alone with the doctor. He can test her to see what's wrong with her. Why? Because she's in a state of haja. Are we clear on this? So, as we discussed yesterday, there was a Sahabi who was allowed by the Prophet to wear a gold nose, a mold, even though gold is haram for men. Another Sahabi, Zubair, he had skin problems, scurvy. It's not darura, it's not killing. But the Prophet allowed him to wear silk. But silk is haram. But it's not a major haram. It's not haram of the ends. It's a haram of showing extravagance. So number one, when an individual is facing darura, so individual plus darura, what becomes the haram? Haram of means. Those minor ones that lead to are haram, become halal. If an individual is facing darura, then the haram of the ends are also halal. If an individual is facing haja, haram of the means becomes permissible, haram of the ends stays prohibited. If an individual is facing haja, plus scholars disagree on an issue. Can a woman travel without a mahram? Yes. No. Ibn Hazm says yes. Another scholar says no. Nawawi says no. Ibn Taymiyyah says if there's security, yes. Another scholar says no. Another one like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani says yes if the road is safe. Another scholar says no. Yes, no, yes, no. Wait a minute. Is she facing a haja? If she's facing a haja, you don't tie her up with disagreement among scholars and say no. Somebody who's facing tahsini, everything is fine, then this issue is just academic. You can go with any opinion you want. But for somebody facing haja, on a topic where there's difference of opinion, you give them the easier one. Yassir wala tu'assir. Okay? Make things easy, the Prophet said. When there are two halals, because scholars are differing, then give the easier one to somebody. Especially if they are in haja. Yes. What if he is? Yeah. No. Suicide, you are your own killer. Okay? Sorry?
She refused to do zina and she's being killed.
Well, Allah will judge her. Allah will judge her. And probably she will die as a shaheed because she, and many of the people in Makkah, they stayed on their kalima and they died as shuhada. Okay? But if she decides, no problem, I've got children to take care of, I don't want to, I've got better things to do in life, and I want to come and find ways of putting policies to make sure this thing doesn't go unpunished, she has no sin, because Allah says, فَمَنِ اتُّرَ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. She has no sin. Why? It's not that she wanted it. Yeah. You have no sin for something you are forced to do.
Right. Shukran.
So, individual facing darura, that one no problem. Individual facing haja, haram of the means permissible, haram of the ends haram. Individuals facing haja and scholars disagree on an issue, halal of the means permissible, haram of the ends prohibited. When a society or community is facing haja, it is treated as similar to darura. And haram of the means and the ends become permissible. Why? Because when a society is facing haja, it makes it more serious than when it's just an individual. Inshallah, before we start answering questions, I would like to run through a list that is in the material that some of you have of what to do when scholars differ. Naturally, you will find there are many scholars. This kind of assessment of the person who embraced Islam and wants to know whether he can eat pork at home, whether he can sit at a table where alcohol is served. Some scholars view the hadith as permissibility, or that in other words, this hadith applies to sitting at a table where alcohol is served by Muslims. In other words, Muslims are doing wrong. But do not consider it prohibited sitting at a table where non-Muslims are drinking alcohol. So you have some scholars who have that difference. So others will approach it as, because scholars differ, they would take it as somebody is facing haja, scholars disagree, haram of the means permissible. Others would take it even without difference of opinion. It's an individual's facing haja, haram of the means becomes permissible. If the person is facing haja and it's haram of the ends, but there's disagreement among scholars, it is also halal. Why? Because it's not all scholars that even make it haram. Sorry for that mistake. So, what you will find in this is disagreement regarding how haram is the haram. The closer it is, all of these are leading, the closer, the greater the haram. And so scholars will differ there. How serious is your problem? Is it really haja or is it closer to tahsini? We can draw a line here, but in reality there's no line. It's a gradient. Okay? In reality, it just gets worse and worse as you move. So this is a relative judgment that only somebody who is very close to the situation can assess. So naturally, you will have differences of opinion among scholars here. Tomorrow we will be responding to questions. I would just like to say, when scholars differ on a topic, scholars propose different approaches for solving differences. They have a set of proposals that they give to fellow scholars. And so, if a scholar is already grounded in usul or grounded in this subject, they would recommend go through the evidence and take the stronger opinion. So what some would do is this hadith stronger than this one? Yes. Then the weaker evidence, put it aside and go with the stronger evidence. And they would describe that as tarjih. Another approach some would do is look at what evidence came later and they look at that as abrogating earlier one. So they call that mansukh. This was nasikh and that's mansukh. So verses of the Quran or hadith that came later would be taken as priority over others. However, the strongest evidence, the strongest fatwas, the strongest opinions in the view of the scholars are those opinions that are able to reconcile all the evidence. Bring all the evidence to the table and do what they call jama. How do you reconcile all? Don't throw any piece of evidence that is a bit strong. Don't throw it aside. Keep it on the table, and how do we reconcile it? That gives you the strongest opinion. So when you hear there's an old fatwa on a topic and scholars are looking at it again, they're usually looking at, yes, you reached a conclusion based on tarjih or nask, but they're wanting to do jam. For us as lay persons, they propose different things because lay people have different levels of knowledge or ignorance. One, they would recommend go with the opinion that you honestly believe from your own analysis, if you know how to analyze, which is the strongest opinion. Which is the strongest opinion. But of course, that is necessarily biased, because if you say the strongest, it means the strongest according to a particular methodology. So, like we discussed earlier on the bid'ah, whatever, depending on which methodology you use, which one you will say is right. So you decide which do you think is the best methodology. But between you and Allah, you honestly believe that is the strongest. Another is to concern yourself with maqasid or maslahah. Especially if you're in leadership position, guiding people, you ask yourself, of the various opinions, which one solves the problem? Which one attains the maqasid of Sharia? Leadership may tell you to do something. Is obedience to leadership a maqasid? Is it lower in importance than who is right, who is wrong on a topic on which you know scholars differ? Careful about disobedience to leadership if the leadership is telling you to do something that is not clearly haram. If it's telling you to do something on which scholars differ, remember, anything leadership tells you to do where on scholars differ, you'll always have somebody who will differ. Don't break unity on these type of issues. Otherwise, when you need the unity, you will not be united. This is one of our problems as an ummah today. We can't solve anything together. Why? Because we have been arguing on all these things that we were supposed to have chilled over. No, they become the hot issues. Then when the hot issues come that we can, no, our hearts are already divided. I can't talk to him. And your strength has gone. Why? Because you're just carried away with, honestly, silly, egotistical issues of right and wrong on which you should have just said, Wallahu alam, but I'm sure we are united on this, right? Yeah, let's come and do our things together. Subhanallah, we unite with dogs to catch thieves. Like we unite with the dog to catch a rabbit. Sharia allows you to be married to a Christian woman with all the difference in Aqidah, but you are united in having children and bringing them up. What's your problem with Muslim? Honestly, you really have to ask yourself, what is it? What's the difference that would tell you you cannot be united in solving a common, obvious problem? But why? We're arguing over bid'ah. We're arguing over this. And this is kufr. And no, this is bid'ah hasana and whatever. And, if you left it alone, nobody would disturb you. So look at what solves the problem. Number 3, some would say, go with your madhab. Go with your madhab, especially if that is the rule of law. In other words, that's the law of the land. Your case will go to court. That's what the judge will judge you by. Yeah, so better you understand that madhab and keep to the law. This is just telling you be law abiding. Others will say, go with the majority. Okay, the similar arguments to ijma. What do the majority say? There's safety in numbers. Others will say, go with the specialist. Is it a specialist area? Women, Islamic finance? Go with the specialist. Not everybody, not majority. You can go with majority of specialists. Is it a local problem that only somebody from your custom, culture, another Malay, another Indian, another Chinese, another person who lives in your neighborhood? Then look at what fatwa is more in line with urf. Al-ada muhakkama. Or it's something that is about local priorities, not necessarily urf, but you need a local scholar. Another option, go with what is easiest. If it's all halal, go with what is easiest. Another option, keep unity and go with the opinion of the leadership. Ultimately, go with your heart. Go with your conscience. What can you meet Allah with? Yeah. Istafta qalbuk walau aftaka al-maftun. Consult your conscience even if they give you fatwa upon fatwa upon fatwa. And ultimately, you are responsible for which of these you choose. There's no one answer. When you come with a particular problem that requires a specialist, your conscience tells you go with the specialist. If this issue regards moon sighting or whatever, go with the leadership, keep unity. If it comes to a convert, just embrace Islam, finding it difficult, go with the ease, go with what solves the problem. If you're a leader, carrying people who are strong and weak, consider the weak, go with maslahah. If it's you alone and you can actually analyze and you feel this is the stronger opinion, go with the strongest opinion. Somebody comes with, oh, this woman, she embraced Islam. Her husband still stayed as a non-Muslim. Should I accept it, or should she stay married or leave? Ibn Qayyim says there are 9 different opinions among the scholars on that topic. 9 different opinions. And of the opinions, Ibn Taymiyyah's opinion is you stay married. That's also the opinion of Ibn Qayyim. Other opinions, after the 9, 3 of the opinions are saying you stay married. If you're interested in this Ahkam Ahl Dhimma by Ibn Qayyim, you'll see the details there. Qardawi also wrote a more detailed thing about it. So where you face somebody facing that type of problem, is that the strongest opinion that solves the problem? Is that what is easier for the person? There's no one answer, but look at these as tools that can help in decision making. You will forgive me for stopping here. We promised we would stop at 6:30. We've already gotten closer to 7. What I would say is, first thing tomorrow morning, I'd like you to go and think about this. In the morning, is there anything that we have done that is not clear? So we will respond to those. Do we need more examples? Do you need referencing? Or where can I find more information about this? We deal with that in the first 30 minutes, 1 hour of tomorrow. After that, we'll start handling the questions that we gathered on day 1, inshallah. Are we okay? Brother is asking of a society facing Haja. At the time of Umar bin Khattab, the society was facing Haja. People were not dying, but due to insufficient food, it had already started creating a problem of food. So he relaxed the had, which would have been haram. But had is not a haram of the ends. The haram of the ends is the stealing. So it's a haram of the means.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And no more questions. See you tomorrow morning. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.